You're not welcome this Easter, my mom whispered. Fine, but don't expect my $9,800, I said, turning off the electricity, water, and internet at their house. Don't come in. That was the first thing my mom said when she opened the door. No hug, no Happy Easter. Just those 3 words that hit me hard. I stood there holding a bottle of wine and a basket of handmade chocolate eggs. I even wore the light blue shirt she liked, the one that used to make her proud of me, but today, she wouldn't even look at me. What? I asked, confused. Are you serious? My mom glanced behind her and stepped outside, closing the door just a little, like I was a threat. It's better if you don't come in today, she whispered. The air felt cold. I drove 3 hours to be here. I know, she said quietly, but things are tense, and Olivia said she wouldn't come if you were here. Of course, Olivia. She was always in the middle of things. I could hear laughter and glasses clinking inside. I even heard Olivia's voice, all sweet and fake, saying, honestly, this year feels so peaceful, no drama. I wanted to yell, but I stayed calm, smiling the kind of smile that says, you don't know what's coming. Fine, I said, pulling out my phone, enjoy your peaceful Easter, but don't expect my $9,800 anymore. My mom looked confused. What money? I stared at her. The electricity, water, internet, those bills I've been paying for months, they're in my name, and I just shut them off. Her face turned pale. What? You didn't tell me. Didn't I? I showed her the app on my phone. 1 tap. The lights went out, and I heard Olivia shout from inside, the Wi-Fi just cut off. I smiled and turned to leave. Happy Easter. I walked back to my car. No one followed. No one apologized. As I sat in my car, I saw Olivia appear in the doorway, holding her phone up, looking angry. Are you crazy? We were about to eat lunch. I rolled down the window and said, call your real family. Maybe they'll pay the bills next month. Then I drove away, feeling no guilt. That was the moment I stopped letting them take advantage of me. I stopped being the one they could use for money. For years, I told myself I was helping, that I was the responsible one, that family meant sacrifice. I even remember the time my dad called me during a meeting. Power's getting shut off, he said. What? Again? I asked. It'll be just a couple days. If you can cover it, I'll send it back by Friday. He never sent it back, and I paid anyway. My family always took without asking, and I always let them. When my dad lost his job, I helped with bills. When my mom needed a dental procedure, I paid. When Olivia couldn't afford her car lease, I co-signed it and paid the first 6 months. At first, it felt good. I was the reliable one, but over time, they started expecting it, taking it for granted, and even looking down on me. You're lucky you don't have kids, Olivia said at dinner once. All your money is just yours. That must be nice. You mean the money I used to pay your bills? I replied. Oh please, she scoffed. Don't act like it's charity. You like feeling superior. My mom tried to defend her. She didn't mean it like that. No, I meant exactly that, Olivia said with a smirk. You think we should thank you because you pay a few bills? A few bills? I said. Let's talk about that. Water, $1.83 a month. Electricity, $2.10. Internet, $1.89. Streaming. Random Amazon orders. Mobile plans. I stopped counting. Last month, I checked my bank app and saw I'd sent $9,800 in just the last year. And still, to them, I was the bitter, selfish one. The worst part? I wasn't even surprised anymore. A few weeks ago, I overheard a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. I dropped off some groceries at the house and heard them laughing in the kitchen. He's so uptight, Olivia said. You think paying a few bills makes him the king of the world? Mom added, he's probably just lonely. Dad said, he works too much, has all that money, but no one to spend it on. At least he's good for something, Olivia said. I'd cry if I had to pay my own internet. They all laughed. I stood frozen outside with the grocery bags. No one saw me. I turned and left without saying a word. Later that night, I canceled the autopay for their Netflix and Disney Plus. The next day, Olivia texted me. Did the Wi-Fi glitch, Or did you forget to pay again? I didn't respond, but the real breaking point came 2 months ago when I checked my bank account. I saw charges for a new MacBook, a wellness retreat, and designer clothes, all billed to the card I gave my mom for emergencies. I called her right away. Did you buy a MacBook? I asked. Oh, that was for Olivia, she said. She needed one for work. And the retreat, she was going through a rough time. Honestly, she was crying every night. Using my money? I asked. She got quiet. You make more than all of us combined, she said. It's not like you can't afford it. I hung up. 4 days. I debated confronting them, but then I remembered something Olivia had said last Thanksgiving. We all play our roles. Mine is being fabulous. Yours is paying for the turkey. Everyone laughed. I forced a smile and swallowed my pride. But now, I couldn't even look at a turkey without getting angry. Easter was supposed to be the one time we all pretended to care about each other. I bought gifts for the kids, took time off work, and even made brunch reservations. A week before, I got a text from Mom. Hey sweetie, can you make sure the utility payments are up to date before the weekend? Olivia is hosting an egg hunt at the house. I didn't reply, but I still paid $385 for their comfort with zero gratitude. And then Easter came. I showed up with wine and chocolate, and they shut the door in my face. You're not welcome this Easter, my mom said. Olivia made sure I heard her from inside. Honestly, it just feels better without the moodiness, she called out. Let em keep it light this year. They wanted light. I gave them darkness. No electricity, no water, no internet. I sat in my car, watching the house go dark. The porch light flickered off. The sprinklers stopped. 5 minutes later, Olivia burst out the door, waving her phone like a weapon. What did you do? She screamed. I rolled down the window. Enjoy Easter, I said, the way you wanted, without me. Then I drove off, finally realizing that sometimes the only way to heal is to cut ties. I hadn't even made it home before the calls started. First Mom, then Dad, then Olivia again. My phone buzzed non-stop. I ignored all of them until one message from Dad made me laugh. You're being dramatic. Come back and fix this. Fix this? I replied. You mean the water, the internet, and your idea of a family? No thanks. They showed up at my place 2 hours later. I heard the knock but didn't move. Let them stew. Let them feel something for once. Then I heard shouting. Are you seriously going to ignore your own mother on Easter? Open the door, or we're calling the police. Olivia screamed. This is abuse. I opened the door just as Olivia raised her hand to knock again. She stumbled inside. Get in, I said flatly, but if you raise your voice, I'm calling the cops. They came in, a mess of tears and yelling. You think this is funny? We had guests over. Children, do you know what it's like to explain to a 5-year-old why the bathroom won't flush? Yeah, I said, sitting down. You told them their aunt and uncle expect me to pay for everything. Boom, silence. Mom gasped. Olivia's eyes went wide. Dad clenched his fists. How dare you speak to your family like that? Mom snapped. Family? I raised an eyebrow. The same family that told me not to come because I ruined the vibe? The same one that laughed behind my back about how useful I am? The same one that used my money like it was nothing? Dad stepped forward. You're overreacting. No, I said. I'm done reacting. I'm acting. Finally, Olivia crossed her arms. You think this makes you powerful? Cutting off the utilities just to make a point? No, I replied. This makes me free. She snorted. Honestly, you've always had this martyr complex. You want applause for paying a few bills. You mean the $9,800 I spent last year? I asked. I snapped and pointed out everything I'd been paying for: heating, therapy, her new iPhone, her fake Paris trip that was really a spa in Palm Springs. Mom's face went pale. You went through my stuff? She asked. You used my credit card for the plane ticket? I get the statements, I replied. Dad tried to change the topic. Okay, look, we've made some mistakes, he said. I interrupted. Dad, you told me I didn't belong at the table. You said Olivia deserved the help more because she has a future. You said that to my face. I was angry, he muttered. No, I said. You were honest for once. Mom reached out, begging. Sweetheart, please. We're family. Can we just reset and undo what you did? No, I said coldly, because you didn't just shut me out today. You've been shutting me out for years. You've taken what you needed, but the second I say no, I'm the villain. Olivia was shaking now, her anger turning into quiet rage. You regret this? She asked through gritted teeth. You think cutting us off will make you feel better? You'll be alone. Good, I said. Alone is better than being drained by people who smile when I walk in and spit on my name when I leave. There was silence, a heavy, uncomfortable silence. Then I stood up. Here's what's going to happen, I said calmly. You'll find another way to pay the utilities. You'll transfer the car lease off my name in 30 days. You'll stop using my Netflix, Spotify, and Amazon Prime. If you don't, I'll lock it all down permanently. You wouldn't, Dad started. Try me, I said. And, Mom, if you ever try to guilt trip me again with a "you're our son," just remember, sons deserve love, not invoices. Mom started crying. Dad looked down. Olivia, she stormed out, slamming the door so hard that a picture frame fell. I didn't care. I didn't follow, didn't try to fix anything. For the first time in my life, I didn't try to make it better. I closed the door, locked it behind them, and let out a breath. The war was over. I'd won. The silence afterward was unreal. No calls, no texts, no knocks on the door. It felt like they decided I didn't exist. And you know what? It felt amazing. For the first time in years, I woke up without that pressure in my chest, the one that whispered, "What will they need from you today?" No more checking my bank app to cover their latest emergency. No more fake group chats where they sent memes and ignored my messages. No more guilt-filled holidays where I bought gifts for everyone and got socks in return. I was free, and the silence? It was beautiful. I started sleeping better, eating better, living better. I bought a cheap secondhand guitar and started teaching myself chords. I reconnected with college friends. I signed up for a photography class, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time or space for. For once, every cent I earned went toward me, my rent, my groceries, my future. It felt selfish, but then it felt fair. Then it felt right. A week later, Olivia posted a passive-aggressive Instagram story with a black background and white text. Some people will leave you when you need them the most, but God sees everything, and karma is real. I didn't reply, but I screenshot it for the laughs. A few days later, Dad called. I stared at my phone as it rang 5 times, then went to voicemail. Hey, your mom's upset. Olivia is talking about selling her car. I don't know why you're doing this, but it's gone too far. We're family. Call us. I didn't call. Instead, I emailed Olivia the car lease transfer forms with a 14-day deadline. The subject line, "You're welcome." Then, the real surprise came. Kelly, my cousin's wife, reached out. She had been at the Easter gathering when everything blew up, standing quietly in the background as Olivia cursed and Mom acted like I'd murdered someone. She messaged me late one night. I know this might be weird, but I just wanted to say thank you. I've never seen anyone in this family stand up for themselves like that. Honestly, it made me realize a lot about how they treat people. You didn't deserve that. I hope you're doing okay. I stared at the message for a while. Someone saw it. Someone finally saw me. I wrote back. I'm doing better than okay, for the first time in a long time. But, of course, peace never lasts in my family. 2 weeks later, I came home to find a letter taped to my door. No return address. Inside, my mom had written, "We raised you better than this." And the last line, "You'll always be our son, even if you've forgotten what that means." I folded it up, threw it away, and went out for tacos, because the truth is, they'll never get it. I didn't forget what family means. They never really knew. They thought love meant control. They thought money meant obedience. They thought silence meant agreement. They thought giving everything up was proof of loyalty, but I finally understood better. Now, when I walk into my apartment, it's quiet, not because I'm unwanted, but because I want it. I light a candle, play some music, sit by the window, and breathe. No one's asking me for money. No one's waiting for me to fail. And for the first time, I don't feel like a backup plan in someone else's life. I feel like the main character in my own. What's crazy is the world didn't end when I told my family I was done. No thunder. No lightning. No regret. Just silence and freedom. For someone like me, who spent years being the good son, that silence was everything. It wasn't empty. It was peaceful. It wasn't lonely. It was quiet. The kind of quiet that lets you hear your own voice again. For years, I couldn't even hear mine. I'd wake up and start figuring out who I needed to help that day. Mom needed $300 for her gas bill. Olivia's account got frozen and she couldn't miss a concert. Dad's credit card payment was late. Every time I said yes, I felt a little smaller. They didn't ask. They expected. They didn't see me. They used me. And I let them because I thought that was what love felt like. Suffocating. I thought being needed was the same as being wanted. But it's not. Being used is not love. It took one slammed door and a power outage to finally understand that. After Easter, the messages stopped. No more threats. No more guilt. No more begging. It was like I had disappeared and they didn't know how to say it. But that a ghost phase? It gave me the clearest view of my life. I started asking myself questions I'd never been allowed to ask. What do I want? Who am I outside of them? What happens if I stop being their lifeline? And you know what I found? Breath. Space. Joy. I learned to cook for myself, real meals, not just cereal. I joined a local music jam on Saturdays. I started writing stories and poetry. Heck, even this. Turns out, there's a whole person under all the guilt. One night, a few weeks after everything blew up, I ran into Rachel at a bookstore, a girl I knew from college. She looked different. Happier. Lighter. We got coffee and started talking. She asked, "Are you still close with your family?" I paused, then really said it, without flinching. No. I cut them off. She blinked, then smiled. Good. I laughed. I wasn't expecting that. Most people just stare at me like I'm a criminal. She shrugged. Most people don't know what it's like to be the family doormat. We talked for hours about boundaries, healing, and finally choosing yourself without guilt. That night, walking home, I realized I wasn't broken anymore. I was rebuilding from the ground up, without them. And that was okay. Months passed. I stopped jumping when my phone rang. I didn't dread checking my bank account. I didn't check Olivia's social media for the next insult. And one day, I found myself laughing, actually laughing, at a meme someone sent me. I realized, I'm happy. Not because something huge happened, but because nothing was draining me anymore. For the first time in forever, I wasn't someone else's crutch. I was just me. Then, the final twist. I got a voicemail from Mom. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "Hi, sweetheart. I hope you're okay. Olivia's been going through a hard time. The house feels different without you. I know you're angry. I know we messed up, but you're still our son. We love you. I miss you." I listened to the message twice, and for the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't feel pulled back in. I didn't feel guilty or angry. I just felt done. And that feeling? It wasn't cold. It was warm, like standing in the sun after years in the shade. So here's what I know now: saying no doesn't make you cruel. Setting boundaries doesn't make you heartless. Walking away from toxic people, even family, isn't betrayal. It's survival. Maybe my name's now a curse word at their table. Maybe they'll twist the story and make me the villain. Let them. They're not in my life anymore. My life is finally mine. So if you're reading this and you're tired of always giving, always forgiving, always sacrificing while they laugh behind your back, let me be the proof. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to walk away. You're allowed to choose you. And if they ever tell you you're not welcome, you say, "Good. I didn't come here to be welcome. I came to stop bleeding." Then, stand tall, walk out the door, and never look back. Because peace isn't something they give you. It's something you reclaim when you finally say enough.
I always thought my daughter would be the one to carry my legacy forward, not the one to destroy it. But there I stood, in the middle of my own birthday party, watching Avery tap her champagne glass with a silver spoon, preparing to make what I assumed would be a touching speech about her mother. I'm Mila, and I built Hernandez Fashion from nothing but determination and a secondhand sewing machine. 25 years of sleepless nights, missed vacations, and countless sacrifices, all to create something meaningful for my daughter. Mom, Avery's voice rang clear across the rooftop venue. You've given so much to this company. She paused, her perfectly manicured hand gripping the glass tighter. Maybe too much. The first warning bell went off in my head. Something in her tone wasn't right. The board and I have been discussing the future of Hernandez Fashion, she continued, her blue eyes, so like mine, avoiding my gaze. We believe it's time for a change in leadership. The champagne in my hand suddenly felt too heavy. Around me, faces I'd known for years started shifting uncomfortably in their seats. What are you saying, Avery? I managed to keep my voice steady, though my heart was racing. I'm saying it's time for you to step down, Mom, effective immediately. The silence that followed was deafening. Someone gasped. I heard Nora, my oldest friend in the company, mutter, "Jesus Christ," under her breath. You're firing me? I asked, still unable to process what was happening. At my birthday party, Avery's face hardened. We needed to do this publicly to ensure a clean break. The board agrees that your traditional approaches are holding us back. We need to modernize, digitalize, move forward. Forward? I set my glass down before my shaking hands could betray me. I just secured the Martinez account last week. Our numbers are up 30% from last year. Through outdated methods, Avery countered. Personal meetings, handshake deals. It's not sustainable in today's market. Justin, Avery's business partner, stood up. Mila, we've prepared a generous severance package. Spare me the details, Justin. I cut him off, my voice ice cold. 25 years of business negotiations had taught me how to hide my emotions. I assume my office needs to be cleared by tomorrow? Security will pack your things, Avery said. It's better this way. Better. My own daughter couldn't even trust me to clean out my desk with dignity. I stood up slowly, smoothing my black dress, the one Avery had given me last Christmas. Well then, I suppose I should thank you all for coming to my birthday party. And my retirement party, apparently. Nora started to stand, but I waved her off. This wasn't the time for sympathy. I needed to leave with whatever fragments of pride I had left. As I walked toward the elevator, Avery called out, "Mom, wait!" I turned, meeting her eyes one last time. You know, Avery, I taught you everything I know about business. Everything except one thing. Karma's a patient teacher, and she always collects her dues. The elevator doors closed on her startled face, and I finally allowed myself to shake. 30 floors to pull myself together. 30 floors to decide what comes next. In the lobby, I passed the wall of magazine covers featuring our success story. Mother and daughter, the unstoppable duo of Hernandez Fashion. What a joke. Outside, the New York evening was humid and alive with possibility. My phone buzzed, probably Nora checking on me, but I ignored it. Instead, I opened my banking app and checked my personal accounts. The money I'd been saving for Avery's eventual wedding looked back at me, mocking my maternal sentimentality. A notification popped up on my screen. Rising stars in fashion, independent designers struggle in corporate shadow. The article featured two young designers, Bridget and Annalise, talking about their challenges breaking into the industry. My hands stopped shaking as an idea took root. If Avery wanted to play corporate shark, fine. But she'd forgotten who taught her how to swim in these waters. I flagged down a taxi, my mind already racing with possibilities. "Where to?" the driver asked. I thought about the article, about karma, about revenge, served not cold, but perfectly tailored. "Law offices of Goldman and Associates," I said. It was time to create a new company, under a new name, one that would remind my daughter that some traditional approaches still had teeth. The taxi pulled away from the curb, leaving behind the building where I'd spent half my life. In the rearview mirror, I watched it disappear into the skyline, along with the last traces of the Mother Avery thought she knew. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destruction, it's about creation, and I was about to create something that would make my daughter's betrayal look like the mistake it was. 3 months after my public humiliation, I sat in the back row of a small design studio, watching Bridget and Annalise present their latest collection to potential buyers. Their talent was raw, undeniable, but their presentation needed work. "The stitching technique is traditional Vietnamese," Bridget explained, her hands shaking slightly as she held up a blazer. "But we've modernized it for—" "How many units can you produce in a month?" interrupted one of the buyers, barely looking up from his phone. "Well, currently we're limited by our—" "Pass," he said, standing up. "Call us when you have the infrastructure to handle real orders." I waited until the disappointed buyers filed out before approaching the design table. Bridget was fighting back tears, while Annalise angrily stuffed fabric samples into a drawer. "Your biggest problem isn't production capacity," I said, making them both jump. "It's that you're letting them set the terms of the conversation." "I'm sorry, who are you?" Annalise asked, protective arm around her partner's shoulders. "Maria Luna," I said, using my new alias, "and I'm here to invest in your company." Bridget wiped her eyes. "We're not looking for small investors. We need serious—" I pulled out my phone and showed them the number I was prepared to offer. Their eyes widened in perfect sync. "That's—" Annalise swallowed hard. "That's a lot of zeros." "It comes with conditions," I said, running my hand over their displayed designs. "I remain anonymous, no board seat, no public involvement, but I want final approval on business strategy." "Why anonymous?" Bridget asked. "Suspicious?" I smiled, thinking of Avery. "Let's just say I prefer to let the work speak for itself. Do we have a deal?" They looked at each other, having one of those silent conversations that close partners perfect over time. Finally, Bridget nodded. "Good," I said. "Now, show me that blazer again, but this time sell it like you own the room." The next few weeks were a blur of late nights and coffee-fueled strategy sessions. I taught them everything I knew about the industry, every trick, every shortcut, every handshake deal that Avery had dismissed as outdated. "The Martinez account is looking for new suppliers," I mentioned casually one evening, knowing they were Avery's biggest client. "Their buyer, Sandra, loves hand-finished details." "Martinez?" Annalise's eyes went wide. "They're way out of our league." "Not anymore," I said, pulling out my phone. "Sandra's having lunch at Le Bernardin tomorrow, table 12. She always orders the sea bass." "How do you know that?" Bridget asked. I waved away the question. "Take the blazer, wear it. When she compliments it, and she will, be ready." The next day, I watched from across the restaurant as Sandra practically chased them down for a meeting. 1 week later, they had the contract. "I don't understand," Bridget said during our celebration dinner. "Everything you've taught us. It's like you've been doing this for decades." I sipped my wine carefully. "I'm just good at reading people." "Well, whatever it is, it's working." Annalise grinned, showing me her phone. "Look at these numbers." And Hernandez Fashion stock dropped 3 points after Martinez signed with us. My hand tightened around my glass. "Is that so?" "Yeah, apparently their CEO is freaking out. Some trust fund princess who fired her own mother to take over. Can you believe that?" Karma's a patient teacher, I murmured. What? Nothing. Tell me about the new collection you're planning. As they excitedly shared their ideas, my phone buzzed with a text from Nora. Avery's losing it. Board meeting was a disaster. She keeps asking about your new venture. How long are you going to keep this up? I typed back. As long as it takes. Looking up, I watched Bridget and Annalise sketch designs on a napkin, their enthusiasm infectious. They reminded me of myself at their age, hungry, talented, fearless, before corporate politics and family betrayal complicated everything. We need a name, Bridget said suddenly, for the new collection. Phoenix, I suggested, thinking of my own rise from the ashes of my birthday party humiliation. Because sometimes the most beautiful things emerge from the fire. They loved it, of course. They loved everything I suggested, implementing each strategy with the kind of trust I once hoped to see from my own daughter. Later that night, alone in my apartment, I scrolled through photos of their latest designs. They were good, better than good. With my guidance, they'd become exactly what Avery feared. A real threat to Hernandez fashion. My phone buzzed again. Avery's name flashed on the screen, the first time she'd tried to contact me since that night. I let it ring until it stopped, then poured myself another glass of wine. Patience, I whispered to myself, watching the city lights flicker outside my window. Karma's just getting started. I didn't mean to be at the same restaurant as Avery. That was genuine coincidence. But when I heard her voice rise above the quiet dinner crowd, I couldn't help but listen from behind my menu. What do you mean they're going with Phoenix? Avery's voice cracked. We've worked with Vogue for 15 years. I peeked around the corner. She was sitting with Justin, her perfectly styled hair now slightly disheveled. A half-empty martini glass sat in front of her. They loved the fresh perspective, Justin said, his tone careful. The Vietnamese-inspired collection really spoke to them. Fresh perspective? Avery slammed her hand on the table. We offered them exclusive digital integration, AI-powered sizing, everything they asked for. Sometimes it's not about the technology, Avery. It's about the soul of the designs. I smiled behind my menu. Those were my words, spoken through Justin's mouth. He'd always been the more reasonable one. Soul doesn't pay the bills, Avery snapped, then lowered her voice as other diners turned to look. First Martinez, now Vogue. Who's next? Maybe we should consider. If you suggest bringing my mother back, I swear to God, Justin. The board's asking questions, he pressed on. Our stock is down 18%. The holiday collection isn't moving. We need to do something. Avery's laugh was bitter. You think I haven't tried calling her? She won't answer, won't return my emails. It's like she disappeared. Can you blame her? The silence that followed was heavy. I risked another glance. Avery was staring into her martini, looking more like the little girl who used to fall asleep in my design studio than the CEO who fired me. I did what I had to do, she whispered. Did you? Justin leaned forward. Because from where I'm sitting, we had a good thing going before you decided to go nuclear on your own mother. We were stagnating. We were stable, profitable, respected. Justin stood up, dropping his napkin on the table. Maybe it's time to admit you made a mistake. After he left, Avery ordered another martini. I watched her pull out her phone, scroll through something, then press it to her ear. Mom? Her voice was small now. I know you're getting these messages. Please, I need to talk to you. Everything's falling apart and I don't know how to. She trailed off, wiping her eyes. Just call me back, please. Something twisted in my chest. The mother in me wanted to go to her, stroke her hair like I used to when she was upset. But the businesswoman in me remembered the humiliation, the betrayal, the cold calculation of that birthday night. My phone buzzed. Bridget was calling. "Maria," she said when I answered. "We just got the confirmation. Vogue wants us for the September issue, main feature." "Wonderful news," I said, watching Avery order a third martini. "How about we celebrate tomorrow? I have some ideas for the photo shoot." "You always have the best ideas," Bridget gushed. "Oh, and guess what? Nordstrom called. They want to meet next week." I ended the call and finally signaled for my check. As I stood to leave, Avery's voice carried across the restaurant again, this time talking to someone new on her phone. "I don't care what it takes," she was saying, steel back in her voice. "Find out who's behind Phoenix. Someone must know something about this Maria Luna person." I froze mid-step. She was investigating. Of course she was. I taught her to always know her competition. "No, I want everything," she continued. "Bank records, business registrations, social media. There's no way someone comes out of nowhere with that kind of industry knowledge. Time to be more careful." I'd taught Avery too well. She'd keep digging until she found something. And when she did, I walked past her table on my way out, close enough to smell her familiar perfume, the one I'd given her for Christmas 2 years ago. She was too absorbed in her phone call to notice me, just another middle-aged woman in a city full of them. Outside, the evening air was crisp with autumn's approach. Fashion Week was coming, and with it, Phoenix's biggest moment yet. Bridget and Annalise's collection would be the talk of the industry. And Avery, I pulled out my phone and listened to her voicemail again. "Everything's falling apart and I don't know how to—" "You know how," I whispered to the night air. "You just don't want to admit it." My car arrived, and as I slid into the back seat, I sent a quick text to Nora. "Keep an eye on her. She's starting to spiral." The response came quickly. "She's not the only one. What's your endgame here, Mila?" I stared at the message for a long moment before typing, "Justice." But as the car pulled away from the curb, passing Avery's familiar silhouette in the restaurant window, I wondered if justice and revenge were really the same thing after all. "The stitching is wrong," I said, running my fingers along the sample dress. "You can feel it, right here at the seam." Bridget frowned, leaning closer, "But we followed the exact specifications." "Specifications aren't everything." I picked up a needle and thread. "Watch." The design studio had become my second home over the past few months. As I demonstrated the correct technique, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, focused, alive, teaching again, just like I used to with Avery. "There," I said, holding up the corrected seam. "Feel the difference?" Annalise gasped. "It's perfect. How do you know all these little tricks?" Before I could answer, Nora burst into the studio, face flushed. "We have a problem." "Nora?" I blurted out, forgetting myself for a moment. Can we help you?" "Oh, drop the act, Mila," she said, then turned to Bridget and Annalise. "Ladies, could you give us a minute?" They looked at me uncertainly. I nodded, and they retreated to the break room. "Are you crazy?" Nora hissed once we were alone. "Avery's hired private investigators. She's obsessed with finding out who's behind Phoenix." "Let her look," I said, though my hands shook as I put down the needle. "Everything's legal." "Legal isn't the point. She's coming unhinged. The board is threatening to remove her if she doesn't turn things around by Fashion Week." That stopped me cold. "Remove her? Isn't that what you wanted? Your revenge?" I trailed off, realizing I wasn't sure anymore. "I wanted her to understand what she did wrong." "Well, congratulations. She's understanding it all the way to unemployment. That what you had in mind, Mama Bear?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Bridget. "Sorry to interrupt, but Justin from Hernandez Fashion is here. Says it's urgent." "Send him in," I called out, ignoring Nora's warning look. Justin entered, looking exhausted. He stopped short when he saw Nora. "I should have known you were involved." "Justin," I said, keeping my voice steady. What brings you to the competition? Cut the crap, Mila. We both know it's you. He ran a hand through his hair. The techniques, the industry connections, the strategic timing, it all screams Mila Hernandez. Prove it. I'm not here to expose you. I'm here to make a deal. That caught me off guard. What kind of deal? Avery's drowning. The holiday collection is tanking. Our best clients are jumping ship, and she's spending more time investigating Phoenix than running the company. He stepped closer. Help her. Help her? I laughed. Like she helped me on my birthday? She made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake, but she's still your daughter. My daughter died the moment she chose corporate politics over family. Justin pulled out his phone and played a video. It was Avery in her office, late at night, crying over old photos of us together. This is from last week. She watches your old design tutorials every night, trying to figure out where she went wrong. My chest tightened. Turn it off. The board meets next Friday, he continued. Without a miracle, they're voting her out. Is that really what you want? Nora touched my arm. Mila, I have to go, I said abruptly, grabbing my bag. Lock up when you leave. I hurried out, but not before hearing Bridget's voice from the break room. Was that really Mila Hernandez? The Mila Hernandez? Outside, the city was settling into evening. I walked aimlessly, remembering all the nights Avery and I had done the same, discussing designs, sharing dreams. Where had that mother-daughter team gone? My phone buzzed again, another voicemail from Avery. Mom, I found your old sketches today. Remember when you taught me about balance in design? How everything needs its opposite to work? I think I forgot that somewhere along the way. Please call me back. I sat on a nearby bench, suddenly exhausted. A young mother passed by, holding her daughter's hand as the little girl skipped along. They were both laughing. Damn it, I whispered, pulling out my phone again. I dialed Bridget's number. Maria, is everything okay? I need to tell you something, I said, about who I really am. We know, Annalise's voice came through. I was on speaker. We've known for weeks. What? How? Nobody knows those old Vietnamese stitching techniques except the people who learned from your early collections, Bridget said. We studied you in design school, remember? And you're still working with me, even knowing I lied? You gave us a chance when no one else would, Annalise said. We figured you had your reasons. I looked up at the darkening sky, feeling tears form. I need your help with something that might save both our companies. What do you need? How do you feel about a collaboration? I asked, an idea taking shape. Something big, for Fashion Week. A collaboration with Hernandez Fashion? Bridget sounded excited. That would be incredible. Yes, I said, standing up with renewed purpose. It's time to remind everyone what fashion is really about. And what's that? Family, I said softly, in all its forms. The conference room at Phoenix felt too small for the tension it contained. Justin sat across from me, while Bridget and Annalise flanked my sides. We were waiting for Avery. She doesn't know you'll be here, Justin reminded me. Maybe I should warn her. The door burst open. Avery strode in, phone to her ear. I don't care what it costs. Just make sure those samples. She stopped dead when she saw me. The phone slipped from her hand. Hello, Avery, I said quietly. She looked different, thinner, darker circles under her eyes. Her usual pristine appearance showed cracks, a loose thread on her sleeve, a scuff on her designer heels. What is this? She demanded, turning to Justin. A setup? It's a business meeting, I said, gesturing to the chair across from me, about a potential collaboration between our companies. Our companies? She laughed sharply. So it was you behind Phoenix. I knew it. Sit down, Avery. Maybe it was the tone. the one I'd used when she was younger and testing boundaries, but she sat, though her posture remained rigid. The board meets on Friday, Justin said. This could save both companies. Both companies? Avery's voice rose. We don't need saving. We just need to stop this revenge project from stealing our clients. Bridget leaned forward. With all due respect, Ms. Hernandez, we didn't steal anything. We earned those clients. Stay out of this, Avery snapped. No, I cut in. They're part of this conversation. In fact, they're the future of this industry. If you'd stop being so stubborn and look properly. Oh, that's rich coming from you. How long did you plot this? Was it right after the party, or did you wait a few days before deciding to destroy everything I built? Everything you built? I stood up slowly. I built this company with my bare hands while you were still playing with Barbies. I taught you everything you know about fashion. You taught me outdated methods. I taught you that fashion is about people. My voice echoed off the walls. It's about making someone feel beautiful, powerful, seen, but you turned it into nothing but numbers and algorithms. The room fell silent. Outside, the city hummed with midday traffic. Show her, Bridget said softly. I nodded, and Annalise opened a garment bag. Inside was a dress, but not just any dress. It combined Avery's modern aesthetic with my traditional techniques, Phoenix's innovation with Hernandez Fashion's legacy. This is impossible, Avery whispered, touching the fabric. The digital printing with hand-stitched overlay. How did you? Because they listen, I said. Like you used to, before you decided tradition had no place in your vision. We have 10 more designs ready, Bridget added. A complete collaboration collection for Fashion Week. Traditional craftsmanship meets modern technology. The best of both worlds, Justin said meaningfully. Avery's hands trembled as she examined the dress. The board would never approve working with our biggest competitor. The board will approve anything that saves their investment, Justin countered. Our stock is down 23%. We need this. And what about you? Avery finally looked at me. What do you need? The question caught me off guard. In all our conflicts, she'd never asked that before. I paused, choosing my words carefully. I need to know my life's work is in good hands, whether that's yours or someone else's. She flinched. You really think I'm that bad at this? No, I think you're that scared of failing. So scared that you pushed away the one person who would never let you fail. Tears welled in her eyes. Mom, I'm not asking to come back, I said quickly. But this collaboration, it could be a bridge for both our companies, and maybe for us. Avery wiped her eyes, leaving a smudge of mascara on her hand. She looked at the dress again, then at Bridget and Annalise, who had been quietly watching our exchange. How soon can you show me the other designs? They're in the studio, Annalise said. We can walk through them now. Avery stood up, smoothing her skirt. Fine, show me what you have, but I'm not promising anything. As everyone filed out, she lingered by the door. Mom? Yes? That night, your birthday. I've replayed it 1,000 times. I thought I was being strong, decisive, but I was just being cruel, wasn't I? I met her eyes, my eyes really, in a younger face. Yes, you were. She nodded slowly. I'm sorry. I know it's not enough, but I am. I know, I said. Now let's go see if we can save your company. Our company, she corrected softly, then walked out before I could respond. I stayed behind for a moment, letting out a shaky breath. Revenge had been easier than this tentative peace, this fragile hope. But maybe that's why it wasn't the right answer all along. The Phoenix studio buzzed with nervous energy as we prepared for the board presentation. Dress forms lined the walls, each displaying a piece from our collaboration collection. Avery paced between them, making notes on her tablet. The digital integration on the blue gown isn't working, she muttered. The app keeps crashing. Because you're trying to force technology where it doesn't belong, I said, approaching the dress in question. Look at the fabric. It's telling you where it wants to flow. Fabric doesn't talk, Mom. Doesn't it? I ran my hand along the silk. This piece wants to be draped, not digitally altered. Trust the material. Trust isn't really our strong suit anymore, is it? She meant it as a joke, but neither of us laughed. Bridget rushed in, face flushed. The board members are here early. They're in the lobby. What? Avery checked her watch. They're not supposed to be here for another hour. Probably trying to catch us unprepared, I said, remembering old boardroom tactics. Good thing we're not. But the presentation isn't ready, Avery protested. The slides? Forget the slides. I grabbed her shoulders. You know these designs. You helped create them. Talk from your heart, not your tablet. She shook her head. That's your style, not mine. It used to be yours too, before you started trying to be someone else. The elevator dinged down the hall. Footsteps approached. I can't do this, Avery whispered. Yes, you can. I straightened her jacket, a nervous habit from her childhood. You're my daughter, and whether you believe it or not, you have both tradition and innovation in your blood. The board members filed in, 6 men and women in expensive suits, their faces carefully neutral. I recognized most of them from my time at the company. Avery, the chairman said, then spotted me. And Mila. Well, this is unexpected. Thank you all for coming, Avery started, her voice shaking slightly. We're here to save your rehearsed speech, one of the women interrupted. We've seen the numbers. Unless you have something revolutionary to show us, I move we proceed with the vote of no confidence. I saw Avery's confidence waver. Then she looked at me, and something shifted in her expression. Actually, she said, moving to the first dress form, I'd like to tell you a story about a woman who built an empire from a second-hand sewing machine and her daughter who almost destroyed it by forgetting where she came from. The board members exchanged glances but remained silent. This collection, Avery continued, touching each piece as she walked, is what happens when we stop fighting our legacy and start building on it. Each piece combines Phoenix's innovative spirit with Hernandez Fashion's craftsmanship. She picked up a sleeve from the work table. See this embroidery? It's done by hand, using techniques my mother taught me when I was 12. But the pattern? Generated by AI to ensure perfect symmetry. I watched, pride swelling in my chest, as my daughter commanded the room's attention. This was the Avery I remembered. Passionate, articulate, real. The app integration isn't just for show, she continued. It's about connecting customers to the story behind each piece. They can see the artisans at work, understand the tradition, appreciate the innovation. We're not just selling clothes, we're selling heritage with a future. And Phoenix agreed to this collaboration? The chairman asked skeptically. Actually, I stepped forward. Phoenix was my creation, a reminder to my daughter that sometimes the old ways still work. You're behind, Phoenix? The woman who'd interrupted earlier leaned forward. The company that's been stealing our clients? The company that's been showing us what we lost, Avery corrected. Mom built it to prove a point. And she did, to all of us. She turned to face the board directly. I made a mistake thinking we had to choose between tradition and innovation. This collection proves we don't, and our preliminary buyer response proves the market agrees. Bridget handed out tablets showing the pre-order numbers. The board members' eyebrows rose collectively. These figures, the chairman said slowly, they're verified? Triple-checked, Justin confirmed from the back of the room. The collaboration announcement alone boosted both companies' stock by 12%. The board members huddled together, whispered briefly, then turned back to us. "We came here expecting to end a legacy," the chairman said. "Instead, it seems we're witnessing its renewal. The vote is postponed, pending Fashion Week results." After they left, Avery collapsed into a chair. "I can't believe that worked." "I can," I said softly. "That was the daughter I raised, the one who understands that real strength comes from knowing your roots, not cutting them off." She looked up at me, tears in her eyes. "I really screwed up, didn't I?" "Yes," I agreed, sitting beside her. "But you're fixing it. That counts for something." "Does it count enough?" I took her hand, the first time we'd touched since that birthday night. "It's a start." Around us, the collection gleamed under the studio lights, each piece a bridge between what was and what could be, just like us. Fashion Week arrived in a whirlwind of chaos and anticipation. Backstage at the venue, models rushed between racks of clothing while makeup artists worked their magic. Our show was scheduled to close the week, a spot usually reserved for industry titans. "The zipper's stuck," a model called out in panic, 20 minutes before showtime. "I've got it," Avery and I said simultaneously, both reaching for the dress. Our hands collided. "Sorry," she said. "Force of habit." "Together?" I suggested, and we worked in sync to fix the zipper, just like we used to during our first fashion shows. 5 minutes to places." The stage manager's voice crackled over the intercom. Bridget rushed over, clutching her tablet. "The live stream has 500,000 viewers already waiting. That's more than—" A crash interrupted her. We turned to see one of the models on the ground, blood seeping from her knee. The white finale dress she wore now sported a bright red stain. "No, no, no," Avery muttered, rushing over. "Are you okay?" The model tried to stand but winced. "I think I twisted my ankle." "Get medical," I ordered, then turned to Avery. "We need a new model for the finale, now." "There's no time to call anyone in," she said, running her hands through her hair, her nervous tell since childhood. I looked at the dress, then at Avery. "Put it on." "What?" "You're the same size as Lisa. Put it on." "Mom, I can't." "You can't?" I challenged. "The CEO who fired her own mother can't walk down a runway?" Her face flushed. "That's not fair." "Neither was my birthday party. Put on the dress, Avery." The backstage area fell silent, everyone watching our standoff. Finally, Avery grabbed the dress and disappeared behind a screen. 2 minutes, the stage manager called. I helped Lisa to the medical station, then returned to find Avery emerging in the dress. My breath caught. The white fabric, combining traditional handwork with modern elements, seemed made for her. "I look ridiculous," she muttered, tugging at the hem. "You look like my daughter," I said, adjusting the drape, "the one who used to sneak into my closet and try on sample dresses." Tears welled in her eyes. "Mom, if this goes wrong—" "It won't." I squeezed her shoulders. "Because you're not walking alone." I grabbed the second finale dress, a black version of her white one, and quickly changed. When I emerged, Avery's eyes widened. "Places!" The stage manager was practically screaming now. The show began. From backstage, we watched each model showcase our collaboration. Traditional techniques merged with modern styling, each piece telling the story of 2 generations, 2 companies, 2 perspectives finding harmony. "Next up, finale." The stage manager pointed at us. Avery grabbed my hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "for everything, not just the birthday party, but for forgetting who we were." "Save it for after," I said, squeezing her hand. "Right now, show them what happens when tradition and innovation walk together." The music changed, a remix of the song that played at my first fashion show 30 years ago. Avery recognized it. I saw it in her smile. We stepped onto the runway, mother and daughter, black and white, past and future. The cameras flashed like stars, But for once, neither of us was performing. We were just walking together, the way we should have been all along. At the end of the runway, Avery squeezed my hand 3 times, our old secret code for I love you. I squeezed back 4 times. I love you too. The applause was deafening. In the front row, I saw the board members standing, genuine smiles replacing their usual stern expressions. Bridget and Annalise were crying and hugging each other. Justin gave us a thumbs up. Backstage, after the final bow, Avery didn't let go of my hand. "The board's going to want an answer," she said quietly. "About what?" "About whether you're coming back to the company." She looked at me, not as an employee this time, as a partner. I studied her face, so much like mine, yet uniquely her own. "And if I say yes, then we run it together, properly this time. No more choosing between old and new. We find the balance." "And Phoenix? We merge the companies," she said. "Keep the best of both. If Bridget and Annalise agree, of course." I looked around the backstage area at the young designers from Phoenix mingling with the veteran team from Hernandez Fashion, at the seamless blend of traditional craftsmanship and modern technology in our collection. "Well," I said, "I suppose karma works in mysterious ways." Avery laughed, a real laugh, like when she was little. "Is that a yes?" "On one condition." "Name it." "Next year," I said, "we celebrate my birthday together. No speeches, no surprises, just family." She hugged me then, tight enough to wrinkle both our dresses. "Deal." Around us, the fashion world buzzed with excitement over the show's success. But in that moment, we were just mother and daughter again, finding our way back to each other, one stitch at a time. The morning sun streamed through the windows of our newly merged design studio as I pinned the last photo to the inspiration wall. Avery and me on the runway in our finale dresses. Beside it hung the framed headlines, "Fashion's Greatest Comeback" and "Mother-Daughter Duo Revolutionizes Industry." "You're here early," Avery said, walking in with 2 coffee cups. She handed me one, made exactly how I liked it. "Couldn't sleep," I admitted. "The new collection launches today." "Nervous?" "Aren't you?" She smiled, sipping her coffee. "No, because this time we did it right." The elevator dinged and Bridget burst in, followed by Annalise and a stream of design team members. "The buyers are already lining up outside." "How many?" Avery asked. "All of them." Annalise grinned. "Every major retailer we invited, plus 3 we didn't." I watched as Avery directed the team with natural authority, but not the cold corporate kind she'd tried to embrace before. She'd found her own style of leadership, warm but focused, innovative but grounded. "Mom," she called out, "can you check the finishing on the evening wear? Something feels off about the 3rd piece." I examined the dress in question, running my fingers along the seams. "The problem isn't the finishing. It's trying too hard to be something it's not." I adjusted the drape slightly. "There, now it's honest." "Like us?" she asked quietly. Before I could respond, Justin rushed in. "The press is here early, and you both need to see this." He held up his tablet, showing a social media post from one of our former board members. "A year ago, I voted to remove a legacy. Today, I'm proud to admit I was wrong. What Mila and Avery have created isn't just fashion. It's a blueprint for how tradition and innovation can coexist. Not bad for a revenge plot turned family reunion," Bridget teased. "Speaking of family," Avery said, reaching into her bag. "I have something for you, Mom." She handed me a small wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo. Me teaching her to sew when she was 7, both of us laughing at her crooked stitches. "I found it while cleaning out my old office," she said. "Remember what you told me that day? That perfection isn't about getting everything right," I recalled. "It's about learning from what goes wrong." I finally understand what you meant. She touched the photo gently. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I gave up on us. The studio door opened again as Nora walked in. Sorry to interrupt the moment, but we've got a situation. The buyers want to meet the whole team, Phoenix and Hernandez together. They're saying they won't place orders until they see how the merger really works. I looked at Avery, seeing my own determination reflected in her eyes. Should we show them? Let's show them everything, she said. We gathered the entire team, the young innovators from Phoenix, the seasoned artisans from Hernandez, the blend of experiences and perspectives that made our new company unique. Together, we walked into the showroom. The buyers fell silent as we entered, all eyes on mother and daughter, leading a unified team. Welcome, Avery began, then paused. She looked at me. Mom, would you like to do the honors? I stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. Fashion isn't about choosing between past and future. It's about learning from yesterday to create tomorrow. Every piece in this room represents that journey, our journey. A journey that almost ended, one buyer commented. How can we be sure this partnership will last? Avery joined me, because we finally learned what matters most. Not the sales numbers or the social media metrics, but the legacy we build together. And what exactly is that legacy? Another buyer asked. I watched as Bridget demonstrated our innovative techniques to one group, while Annalise explained our traditional craftsmanship to another. Young designers collaborated seamlessly with veteran artisans, each learning from the other. This, I said, gesturing to the room, a family that extends beyond blood, a company that values both wisdom and fresh perspectives, a future built on understanding our past. The first order was placed within minutes. By lunch, we'd broken our previous sales records. Later, as the excitement died down, Avery found me in my old office, now our shared space. Happy birthday, Mom, she said softly. I looked at the clock. Midnight had just struck. This birthday felt different from the last one. No public humiliation, no corporate power plays. Just my daughter, a slice of cake she'd somehow hidden in her desk, and 2 forks. To karma, she said, holding up her fork like a toast. To second chances, I corrected. We sat together, sharing cake and stories, planning future collections and healing old wounds. Outside, the city lights twinkled like stars, witnessing a new chapter in our story, one where revenge gave way to reconciliation and competition transformed into collaboration. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's showing someone a better way forward, together.
The annual Sanders family reunion always feels like walking into a lion's den wearing a dress made of raw meat. This year, though, I came prepared. Or at least that's what I kept telling myself as I stood in front of the mahogany doors of my brother's oversized mansion, clutching an invitation that would soon change everything. I'm Annalise, and until 6 months ago, I owned a small art gallery in downtown Seattle. Now I'm that family member everyone whispers about. You know, the cautionary tale parents use to warn their kids about following their dreams. Before we continue, quick question. Where has this story found you today? Let us know your location in the comments below. Now, let's continue. Well, look who finally showed up! My cousin Callie's voice cut through the evening air like nails on a chalkboard. She stood in the doorway, martini in hand, wearing that fake smile I'd grown to hate. We were just talking about your situation. Of course they were. I forced a smile and stepped inside, immediately assaulted by the sounds of forced laughter and judgmental whispers. The foyer was packed with relatives, all dressed like they were attending a country club gathering rather than a family reunion. Annalise! My brother Damien's booming voice carried across the room. Come here, sis. Tell everyone about your new job at the coffee shop. I wasn't working at a coffee shop. I was teaching art classes part-time while working on my new collection, but they didn't need to know that. Not yet. Actually, I started, but my mother June appeared, cutting me off with a too tight hug that smelled of expensive perfume and disappointment. "Darling, you look tired," she said, holding me at arm's length. "Have you considered taking that position at Uncle Robert's firm? He's still willing to—" "Mom, I'm fine." I extracted myself from her grip, reaching for a glass of wine from a passing server. "Fine?" Callie snorted. "Is that what we're calling it now? Your gallery closed, Mark left you, and you're living in that tiny apartment painting pictures nobody wants to buy." The room grew quiet, and I could feel every eye on me. My hand tightened around the wine glass as Damien chimed in. "Come on, Anna. It's time to grow up. Not everyone gets to be a famous artist." He gestured around his massive living room. "This is what success looks like. Real success." I took a long sip of wine, letting the familiar burn of humiliation wash over me. But this time, something was different. The weight of the invitation in my purse felt like a secret weapon. "Speaking of success," I said carefully, "I got an interesting call last week." "Oh, God," Callie rolled her eyes. "Please don't tell us you're opening another gallery." "Actually," I pulled out the elegant envelope, "I've been invited to showcase my work in Tokyo at the Shimizu Contemporary." The silence that followed was delicious. Damien's smug smile faltered slightly. "The what?" my mother asked, clearly trying to maintain her composure. "Only one of the most prestigious contemporary art galleries in Asia," I said, watching their faces. "They want to feature my new collection, solo exhibition." "That's unexpected," Damien managed, his voice tight. Callie grabbed the invitation from my hands, her eyes scanning the gold-embossed text. "This has to be some kind of mistake." "No mistake." I took another sip of wine, savoring the moment. "The opening's in 3 months. You're all invited, of course." My mother's face did that thing where she's trying to decide whether to be proud or worried about potential embarrassment. "Darling, are you sure about this? After what happened with the gallery?" "Oh, I'm sure." I smiled, thinking about the collection taking shape in my studio. Every canvas was a story, every brushstroke a response to years of their condescension. I wouldn't miss this opportunity for the world, and I really hope you'll all be there. "We wouldn't miss it," Damien said, his tone suggesting he was already planning how to use my inevitable failure as future reunion fodder. "Right, everyone?" The murmurs of agreement around the room were hesitant, tinged with mockery. They thought they knew what was coming. Another chance to shake their heads at poor, deluded Annalise. My phone buzzed with a text from Antonio, the curator. "Just confirmed. 3 major critics attending opening night. Everything on track." I smiled at my phone, then at my family, who were already turning away, dismissing my news as another pipe dream. They had no idea what was coming. Each of them would be immortalized in my new collection, their judgments and betrayals transformed into something beautiful and damning. "Well," I raised my glass, "here's to family." As they clinked glasses, already moving on to gossip about Cousin Sarah's latest divorce, I felt a strange peace settle over me. In 3 months, these same people would stand in front of my canvases and see themselves reflected back in ways they never expected. Their smugness would be their undoing, and my art would be my revenge. I just had to wait for the perfect moment to strike. The first time I met Antonio, I was sitting in a dingy coffee shop, sketching angry lines across a worn notebook. It was 2 weeks before the family reunion, and I'd just gotten off another condescending phone call with my mother. "That empty chair," a voice said, startling me. "May I?" I looked up to find a well-dressed man gesturing to the seat across from me. The cafe was nearly empty, which made his request odd. "Sure," I said, closing my notebook. "No, please," he said, sitting down. "Keep drawing. Those lines, they speak of something deeper than anger, don't they?" I studied him carefully. "You're an artist?" "A curator." He smiled, extending his hand. "Antonio, I was actually at your gallery several times before it closed. Your work left quite an impression." My chest tightened. "That gallery feels like a lifetime ago." Perhaps. He pulled out his phone, showing me images of familiar paintings. My paintings. But these still speak volumes. Especially this one. It was my self-portrait. The one that hung in the back room. Dark, twisted figures reached from the shadows, trying to drag the subject down, while she reached toward a light they couldn't see. That piece never sold, I said quietly, because it wasn't for sale. It was your story. Antonio leaned forward. Tell me, Annalise, are you still painting? How do you know my name? I make it my business to know artists who matter. He set his phone down. I'm putting together an exhibition in Tokyo. Contemporary pieces focusing on family dynamics, personal transformation. Your work would fit perfectly. I laughed, but it came out bitter. My family thinks I should give up art altogether. Get a real job. Ah. Antonio's eyes sparkled. And what do you think about that? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from my ex-husband. Heard about the gallery, told you it was a mistake. Hope you're finally seeing reason. I showed Antonio the message. That's what everyone in my life thinks. That I'm unreasonable for pursuing art. Then they don't understand art's true power. He pulled out a business card. Pain, betrayal, redemption. These emotions create the most compelling works. Your gallery pieces showed promise, but they were safe. What would you create if you stopped being safe? My hand trembled slightly as I took his card. What exactly are you suggesting? 3 months, 10 pieces. Complete creative freedom. He gestured to my notebook. Those angry lines? Transform them. Show the world what happens when they try to cage an artist's spirit. You haven't seen my new work, I protested. How do you know? I know enough. He stood up, straightening his jacket. The exhibition opens in December. Your family, they doubt you? I nodded. Then invite them. Let them see themselves through your eyes. He smiled, but it wasn't entirely kind. Sometimes the best revenge is forcing people to confront their own reflection. After he left, I sat there for hours, sketching frantically. Images poured out. My mother's disapproving frown transformed into a Baroque mask of propriety. Damien's success worship depicted as a golden noose. Callie's fake sympathy twisted into thorned roses. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Selah, my oldest friend. Hey stranger, haven't heard from you in weeks. You okay? I called her immediately. Selah, I need your honest opinion. Am I crazy for still trying to make it as an artist? What brought this on? Her voice was concerned. Did your family say something again? No. Well, yes, but... I explained about Antonio and the exhibition offer. Holy shit, Anna! Selah's excitement was contagious. The Shimizu Contemporary? That's huge! But what if they're right? What if I'm just setting myself up for another failure? Listen to me. Selah's voice turned serious. Your gallery didn't fail because you're a bad artist. It failed because you were trying to create what you thought people wanted to see. When was the last time you painted something just for you? I looked down at my sketches, raw, angry, honest. I think I'm about to. Then do it. Show them all what you're capable of. She paused. Just promise me one thing. What? Don't hold back. Not this time. That night, I emailed Antonio my acceptance and ordered new canvases. As I cleared space in my small studio apartment, I found my old wedding photo tucked behind some boxes. Mark's smiling face looked back at me, his arm around my shoulders, both of us standing in front of my first gallery opening. You'll never make it in the art world, he'd said the night he left. You're just not good enough. I ripped the photo in half and pinned it to my inspiration board. Below it, I wrote, "Watch me." The next morning, I started painting. Each stroke felt like breaking free from chains I hadn't even realized I was wearing. For the first time in years, I wasn't creating art to please others or prove something. I was creating art to set myself free, and if it burned some bridges along the way, well, that was just part of the masterpiece. Paint splattered across the canvas like blood, dark reds mixing with deep purples. I'd been working for 6 hours straight when the knock came at my door. The sound made me jump, smearing crimson across what was supposed to be my mother's perfectly coiffed hair in the portrait. "Annalise? Darling, are you home?" Speaking of the devil, I looked down at my paint-covered clothes and sighed. "Coming, Mom." I opened the door to find June standing there in her designer suit, looking completely out of place in my apartment building's dingy hallway. Her eyes widened at my appearance. "Oh, sweetheart." She pushed past me into the apartment. "You're not still—" She trailed off as she saw the canvases. 7 of them lined the walls, each one larger than the last. The newest one, still wet, showed a woman in a garden party dress, her face a mask of propriety while serpents coiled around her ankles. "What is this?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "My new collection." I wiped my hands on my already stained jeans. "For Tokyo." She moved closer to the serpent painting, her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. This is me, isn't it?" What gave it away? The pearls or the passive-aggressive smile? "Annalise!" She spun to face me. "Is this what you're planning to show? These angry paintings?" I gestured to the other pieces. "Take a look around, Mom. Tell me what you see." She did, slowly walking the perimeter of my small living room. There was Damien, crowned in fool's gold. Callie, drowning in a sea of champagne and fake tears. My ex-husband, a puppet master with broken strings. "This isn't art," she said finally. "This is revenge." "Why can't it be both?" "Because I raised you better than this." She grabbed my arm. "Listen to me. It's not too late to cancel. I'll call Antonio myself." I jerked away from her. "You know Antonio?" "Everyone in the art world knows Antonio." She smoothed her jacket, a nervous habit I'd captured perfectly in the painting. "He's brilliant, but he can be cruel. He likes to create spectacles. Like showcasing the failed artist daughter of June Watts? That's not fair." "No?" I picked up my brush again, turning to the portrait. "Where were you when my gallery was failing? When Mark left? When I needed someone to believe in me?" I was trying to protect you." Her voice cracked. "This world, it's brutal, Annalise. I watched your father chase his dreams until they destroyed him. Dad died of cancer, Mom, not from being an artist. He died broke and unknown." She touched the serpent painting gently. "Is that what you want?" "I want to be heard." I started fixing the smeared hair in the portrait. "For once in my life, I want people to see the truth." "And what truth is that?" I turned to her, brush pointed like a weapon. "That you were all so busy protecting me from failure, that you became the reason I failed." Silence filled the apartment, broken only by the distant sound of traffic and the drip of paint hitting the floor. My mother stared at the portrait of herself, something unreadable crossing her face. "The technique is beautiful," she said finally. "You've improved." Don't what?" "Don't try to make this okay." I set down the brush. "You can't fix this with compliments and concern anymore." She reached into her purse, pulling out a familiar business card. "Antonio sent me this. Asked me if I wanted to be a special guest at the opening." My stomach dropped. "And I haven't decided yet." She placed the card on my paint-splattered table. "But I want you to think about something. After you show these, after you get your revenge, what then? Where does this path lead?" "To freedom," I said, but my voice wavered. She walked to the door, pausing with her hand on the knob. "Just remember, darling, the thing about burning bridges is that you can end up stranded on the wrong side." After she left, I stared at the portrait for a long time. The serpents seemed to move in the fading light, writhing around the painted figure's ankles. But now I noticed something else, the way her hands reached out, as if trying to catch something falling. My phone buzzed with a text from Antonio. "How's the collection coming? Remember, pain makes the best art." I looked at my mother's portrait again, then at the blank canvas waiting in the corner. 8 down, 2 to go. The final pieces would be the hardest, self-portraits that showed not just my anger, but my transformation. Because my mother was wrong about one thing. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about breaking free from the cage they'd all helped build around me, bar by golden bar. I picked up my brush and started on the 8th canvas. This time, when I painted the serpents, I gave them wings. "You're actually going through with this?" Selah sat cross-legged on my paint-splattered floor, surrounded by bubble wrap and packing materials. 2 weeks before the Tokyo exhibition, and my apartment looked like a war zone. "Help me wrap this one," I said, carefully lifting the portrait of Damien. "And yes, I'm going through with it. Your brother's going to lose his mind when he sees this." She ran her fingers along the frame. "The golden noose is a bit on the nose, don't you think?" My phone rang, Damien's name flashing on the screen. "Speaking of the devil." "Put it on speaker," Selah whispered, grinning. I answered. "Hey, big brother." "Anna, just calling to finalize our Tokyo plans." His voice dripped with fake enthusiasm. "We've booked the presidential suite at the Park Hyatt. You know, that hotel from Lost in Translation?" "That's nice. Callie and I were thinking we could take you out for dinner after your little show. Help you process things." Selah made a gagging motion. I threw a piece of bubble wrap at her. "Process things? Well, you know," he chuckled. "When things don't go quite as planned, it's good to have family around. Remember your first gallery opening?" My hands clenched. "Actually, Damien, I'll be busy that night. The gallery's hosting a private reception for collectors and critics." "Critics?" He laughed. "Come on, sis. Let's be realistic here. 3 major critics confirmed their attendance last week." I started wrapping his portrait with perhaps more force than necessary. Plus, representatives from galleries in Paris and New York. The line went quiet for a moment. "Mom mentioned your new work is different." "You could say that." "Anna, listen." His voice took on that patronizing tone I'd captured perfectly in oils and acrylics. "It's not too late to back out. No one would blame you. We all know how sensitive you can be." Selah mouthed asshole at the phone. "Thanks for your concern," I said, keeping my voice steady. "But I think you'll find I'm not as sensitive as you remember. See you in Tokyo, brother dear." I hung up before he could respond. "God, what a jerk," Selah said, helping me secure the wrapped canvas. "I can't wait to see his face when he realizes what you've done." 9 down, I said, looking at the final blank canvas in the corner. 1 to go. "The self-portrait?" Selah stood, stretching. "What are you planning for that one?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed with a text from Antonio. "Final piece deadline in 3 days. Make it count." He's been pushing for something specific, I admitted. Something that ties the whole collection together. And I walked to my sketches pinned on the wall. I keep coming back to this idea. The rough drawing showed a woman emerging from a chrysalis made of broken picture frames and shattered expectations. Around her, the faces of my family watched from the shadows, their expressions a mix of horror and recognition. "It's perfect," Selah said softly. "But can you finish it in time?" I picked up my brush. "I have to. I've already arranged the shipping for everything else. This is the keystone. Then I'll leave you to it." She hugged me tight. "Just remember to eat something occasionally, okay?" After she left, I stared at the blank canvas for a long time. My phone kept buzzing. Texts from Callie about Tokyo restaurant recommendations. Messages from my mother about reconsidering the tone of my work. Even one from Mark asking if the rumors about the exhibition were true. I ignored them all and started painting. Hours blurred together. I forgot to eat, forgot to sleep. The woman in the painting took shape, her emergence violent and beautiful. I painted through sunrise and sunset, through doubt and determination. On the 3rd day, as I was adding the final highlights, Antonio called. "Is it finished?" "Just about." I stepped back, studying the piece. "It's different from what we discussed." "Different how?" "Come see for yourself." 20 minutes later, he stood in my studio, staring at the still wet canvas. The woman in the painting wasn't just emerging, she was exploding from her chrysalis, fragments of her old life becoming wings of fire and gold. The watching faces weren't horrified anymore. They were transfixed, caught between judgment and awe. "This," Antonio said finally, "is exactly what I was hoping for." "Really? Because you seemed pretty set on the whole revenge angle." He smiled. "Revenge got you started. But this?" He gestured to the painting. "This is transformation. This is what will make them remember. And if they hate it, then they'll hate it memorably." He pulled out his phone. "I'm sending the shipping company over tomorrow morning. Be ready." After he left, I sat alone in my apartment, surrounded by empty spaces where my paintings had been. In 2 weeks, they would all hang in Tokyo, my private pain made public, my secret thoughts revealed in color and light. I looked at my phone, at all the unopened messages from my family. For the first time in years, I felt ready to face them. Let them come to Tokyo. Let them see what they helped create. I was done being afraid. Tokyo hit me like a fever dream. The neon lights, the endless streams of people, the humid air thick with anticipation. Or maybe that was just my anxiety talking. I stood in the gallery space, watching as workers carefully unpacked my paintings. "Careful with that one," I called out as they lifted Callie's portrait. "The frame is still. Everything is under control, Annalise." Antonio appeared beside me, clipboard in hand. This isn't their first exhibition. A crash from the back room made us both jump. One of the workers emerged, looking sheepish. "Sorry, just dropped an empty crate." I pressed my hands to my temples. 2 days? The opening is in 2 days, and nothing is ready. "Actually," Antonio consulted his clipboard, "we're ahead of schedule, which means you have time to deal with that." He pointed to the entrance, where my mother stood in a perfectly tailored suit, looking lost. "Mom?" I walked over. "The opening isn't until Friday." I know." She glanced around the space. "I thought maybe we could talk before everyone else arrives." Antonio caught my eye and nodded. "Take her to the cafe across the street. We've got things handled here." The cafe was tiny, with windows that looked out over the bustling Shibuya streets. My mother stirred her green tea endlessly, avoiding my gaze. "So," I said finally, "you're early." I couldn't wait. She looked up. I needed to see them again, the paintings. "And? They're beautiful." Her voice cracked slightly. "Terrible and beautiful, like watching a car crash in slow motion." "Mom?" "No, let me finish." She reached into her bag, pulling out a worn sketchbook. "Do you remember this?" I recognized it immediately. My old portfolio from high school. "You were so talented, even then." She opened it to a particular page, a portrait of her from years ago, smiling and natural. This was before Dad died, before I got scared. She pushed the sketchbook toward me. "I thought I was protecting you, from poverty, from disappointment, from ending up like Dad? Happy? Your father wasn't happy at the end, Annalise." She closed the sketchbook. He was frustrated, bitter. The art world had chewed him up and spat him out. "So you decided to chew me up first?" The words came out sharper than I intended. A waiter arrived with our pastries, giving us both a moment to compose ourselves. I deserved that," my mother said finally. "I deserved all of it. The serpents, the mask, everything in that painting." "Then why are you here?" "Because," she took a deep breath, "because I want to stand beside you at the opening. Not as the woman in your painting, but as your mother, if you'll let me." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Damien. "Just landed. Callie's flight delayed. Where's the nearest bar to the gallery? Need a drink before seeing your latest endeavor." "Let me guess," my mother said, watching my face. "Your brother's being himself?" I showed her the text. She read it and actually rolled her eyes, something I'd never seen her do before. "You know," she said, "your portrait of him, the one with the fool's gold crown? It's perfect. He always was his own biggest fan." I nearly choked on my tea. Did you just agree with me about Damien? I'm capable of growth. She smiled slightly. The question is, are you? What do you mean? These paintings. They're your way of breaking free. But freedom means different things to different people. She reached across the table, taking my hand. Sometimes it means knowing when to let go of the anger, even when it's justified. My phone buzzed again. Antonio. Critics arriving early for preview. Need you back here. I have to go, I said, standing. The critics? I know. She stood too, straightening her jacket. Just think about what I said. And Annalise? She caught my arm as I turned to leave. Whatever happens at the opening, remember, you already won. You finished the collection. You made it to Tokyo. Everything else is just fool's gold? She laughed, a real laugh, not her usual polite titter. Exactly. Back at the gallery, the lights were being tested, casting dramatic shadows across my paintings. Antonio was directing the final placements, arguing in rapid Japanese with the lighting technician. Move that spot 2 degrees left, he called out. We need the serpents to look like they're moving. I watched as the light shifted, bringing my mother's portrait to life. The serpents did seem to move now, but somehow they looked less threatening than before. Maybe it was the conversation with my mother, or maybe it was just the Tokyo air, but something had shifted. Perfect, Antonio said, coming to stand beside me. Now, are you ready to face the critics? I thought about my mother's words, about letting go of anger, about different kinds of freedom. Yes, I said. I'm ready for whatever comes next. The gallery lights dimmed and rose again, making the gold leaf in my paintings glitter like stars, like promises, like possibilities. Opening night arrived with the subtlety of a thunderstorm. I stood in the gallery's entrance, wearing a black dress that cost more than a month's rent, watching as Tokyo's art elite mingled with my family's particular brand of dysfunction. Darling! Callie's voice carried across the space. This is different from your usual work. She stood before her own portrait, champagne glass trembling slightly in her hand. In the painting, she was drowning in a sea of her own tears, each droplet containing a reflection of her fake smiles. You always said I should try new things, I replied sweetly. Is that supposed to be me? She leaned closer. The resemblance is uncanny? Antonio appeared beside us. That's what the critics are saying. Excuse me, but I need to borrow the artist. The reviewer from Art Forum wants a word. Before he could lead me away, Damien's voice boomed through the gallery. Well, well, little sister, you've really outdone yourself this time. He stood in front of his portrait, his real face almost as red as the painted fool's gold crown. Several critics nearby turned to watch the interaction, their notepads ready. I'm glad you could make it, I said, keeping my voice level. What do you think of the collection? What do I think? He laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. I think you've lost your mind. Is this what you've been working on? Turning your family into monsters? No, I stepped closer. I just painted what I saw. A murmur went through the growing crowd. From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother enter the gallery, stopping short at the scene unfolding. What you saw? Damien gestured wildly at his portrait. You painted me as some sort of corporate puppet. Actually, a crisp voice cut in, the technical term would be modern Midas, the gold that both crowns and condemns. Quite brilliant, really. We turned to find a woman in severe glasses studying the painting. Mariko Sato, Art Forum, she introduced herself. This piece perfectly captures the hollow nature of success worship in contemporary society. The way the crown appears to be melting, consuming the subject. Masterful. Damien's face went from red to purple. This is ridiculous. You're all praising her for telling the truth? My mother's voice made us all turn. She stood before her own portrait, head held high. She's not wrong, Damien, about any of us. The gallery had gone quiet, the audience watching this family drama unfold like it was performance art. Maybe it was. June, Damien started, but she cut him off. No! Look at these paintings. Really look at them. She moved through the gallery, gesturing at each piece. Every criticism, every disappointment, every moment we chose status over support, it's all here, and it's beautiful. Beautiful? Callie scoffed. She's humiliated us. No! Mariko interrupted again, scribbling in her notepad. She's immortalized you. These aren't just family portraits. They're a study of modern relationships, of expectations versus reality. The technical skill is impressive, but the emotional depth, that's what makes these works significant. More critics gathered, discussing brush techniques and symbolism. I heard phrases like breakthrough artist and raw emotional honesty floating through the air. Antonio touched my elbow. The final piece. It's time. He led the crowd to the back wall, where my self-portrait hung, the woman emerging from her chrysalis of broken expectations. Under the gallery lights, the gold leaf wings seemed to pulse with life. This, Mariko said softly, this is the key to everything. The transformation of pain into power. The emergence of authentic self despite societal constraints. Ms. Sanders, you've created something extraordinary here. I felt my mother's hand slip into mine. Yes, she said. She has. Damien and Callie stood apart from the crowd, their faces a mix of emotions I couldn't quite read. But for the first time, they were silent. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of interviews and congratulations. Collectors made offers. Gallery owners handed me cards. Critics praised the bold new voice in contemporary art. Near midnight, as the crowd thinned, I found myself alone with my mother in front of her portrait. The serpents seemed less threatening now, more like guides than tempters. I was wrong, she said simply, about so many things. Mom! No, let me finish. She touched the canvas gently. I thought I was protecting you from the art world. Instead, I became the thing you needed protection from. But this, she gestured around the gallery. This is who you were always meant to be. Behind us, I could hear Antonio announcing the final sales figures to the remaining guests. Could hear Damien and Callie arguing quietly by the exit. Could hear the future rushing toward me like a bullet train. But in that moment, standing with my mother in front of the truth we'd both finally faced, I felt something shift. The anger that had driven my brushes, fueled my revenge, began to transform into something else. Something that looked a lot like freedom. The morning after the opening, I sat in my hotel room surrounded by newspapers. My face stared back at me from the art sections of 3 different publications, alongside glowing reviews of the exhibition. A knock at the door made me jump. Room service! But when I opened it, I found Damien standing there, looking uncomfortable in casual clothes, something I hadn't seen him wear in years. Can I come in? I stepped aside, watching as he took in the scattered newspapers and half-empty champagne bottle from last night. Quite a splash you made, he said, picking up one of the papers. Rising star transforms family drama into artistic triumph. Mom must be thrilled. Why are you here, Damien? He sat heavily in one of the plush chairs. I couldn't sleep last night. Kept seeing that damn painting. The crown, the noose. He looked up at me. Is that really how you see me? It's how you've been. Been? He repeated. Past tense? Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. A text from Antonio. Major collector wants to commission a series. 6 figures. Call me. Damien watched me read the message. Good news? Could be. I set the phone down. Why are you really here? He stood up and walked to the window, looking out over the Tokyo skyline. Remember when we were kids, before Dad got sick? You used to draw these ridiculous portraits of me as a superhero. Super Damien, I said softly. Defender of little sisters. What happened to us, Anna? You happened. Success happened. The day you made partner at your firm, you told me I was wasting my life with hobby art. He winced. I was trying to help. No, you were trying to make me more like you. I joined him at the window. The thing is, Damien, I never wanted to be like you. I just wanted you to be proud of me anyway. The critics are proud enough. He attempted a joke, but it fell flat. That's not the same thing. We stood in silence, watching the city wake up below us. Finally, he turned to face me. The painting, he said. The crown is melting, but the person underneath, he looks scared. Because he is. I met his eyes. Aren't you? Before he could answer, another knock came at the door. This time it was Callie, her makeup perfect despite the early hour. Oh, she said, seeing Damien. I didn't realize. Come in, I said. We're having a family meeting, apparently. Callie perched on the edge of the bed, her designer purse clutched like a shield. I saw the offers. For your paintings. They're impressive. Don't strain yourself with compliments, Callie. I'm serious. She pulled something from her purse, a creased piece of paper. I found this in my old diary. Remember when we were 14? You drew this at my first ballet recital. The sketch showed a younger Callie in mid-leap, her face full of joy rather than calculation. I'd forgotten about it completely. You were always able to see people, she said quietly. Really see them. I guess I just didn't like what you saw in me. The truth hurts, Damien muttered. Says the man wearing golden handcuffs, Callie shot back. To my surprise, they both laughed. It was a fragile sound, but real. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my mother. Breakfast in 20 minutes. The whole family. We need to talk. I showed them the message. She's at the hotel restaurant already, isn't she? Damien asked. Probably color-coding her talking points, Callie added. Some things never change, I said, but the words held less bitterness than before. We made our way down to the restaurant, this strange procession of newly humbled siblings. Mom sat at a corner table, perfectly poised as always, but something was different. She'd taken off her pearls. My children, she said as we approached. Sit, please. We did, falling into our usual seats, me across from Damien, Callie next to Mom. A waiter appeared with coffee and disappeared just as quickly. I've been thinking, Mom began, about legacy. Mom, Damien started, but she held up a hand. Your father's legacy wasn't his art or lack of success. It was his courage to keep creating, even when the world told him to stop. She looked at each of us in turn. And my legacy? Well, thanks to your exhibition, Annalise. I can see it clearly now. I created a family of performers, always playing our parts, always hiding behind our masks. The serpents, I whispered. Yes, she smiled sadly. But maybe it's time for a new portrait, one where we're all a little more real. My phone buzzed one final time. Antonio again. Gallery opening in Paris, wants the whole collection. When can you start the next series? I looked at my family, really looked at them. Damien with his slightly loosened tie, Callie without her usual sharp smile, Mom missing her armor of pearls. All of us, finally seeing each other clearly. Soon, I typed back, but this time, I'm painting something different. Something true. Something healing. Something free. The last day of the Tokyo exhibition dawned clear and bright. I stood in the empty gallery, saying goodbye to each painting before they were packed for Paris. Antonio worked quietly in the background, directing the art handlers. Having second thoughts? He asked, catching me touching the frame of my mother's portrait. No, just... I stepped back, realizing these aren't quite true anymore. That's the point of art, isn't it? To capture a moment in time. My phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Saw the reviews? Congratulations. I was wrong about you. I deleted it without responding. Some chapters didn't need an epilogue. Annalise? My mother's voice echoed through the gallery. She wasn't alone. Damien, Callie, and Selah were with her. What are you all doing here? Selah grinned, holding up her camera. Documenting the moment, obviously. We wanted to see them one last time, Damien said, his tie conspicuously absent, before they head to Paris without us. About that. I exchanged glances with Antonio, who nodded. I'm not sending all of them. What do you mean? Callie asked. I led them to the back room where a new canvas stood covered. I've been working on something, a replacement for the Paris show. But these paintings are a set, my mother protested. The critics all said, the critics don't get to decide anymore. I pulled off the cover. The new painting showed our family breakfast from that morning after the opening. But instead of masks and serpents and golden chains, it showed us as we really were. Imperfect, uncertain, but trying. Mom without her pearls, Damien with his guard down, Callie's genuine smile. In the background, fragments of the original portraits could be seen, but they were fading like old photographs. This is... Callie touched the canvas gently. This is beautiful. It's true, Damien said quietly. My mother stood silent, tears tracking down her cheeks. The Paris gallery wants anger and revenge, Antonio said from behind us. They want the sensational family drama that made headlines. But that's not us anymore, I said. At least, not all of us. So what happens now? Selah asked, snapping photos of our reactions. Now? I smiled. Now I get to choose. The Paris gallery will take the collection as is, or they can have the new direction. Either way, I'm done letting other people decide what my art should be. They'll take it, Antonio said confidently. The new piece, it's stronger than revenge. It's redemption. Speaking of redemption, Damien cleared his throat. I have something to show you. He pulled out his phone, showing me an email. I'm stepping down as partner. What? We all spoke at once. I'm opening my own firm, smaller, more focused on arts advocacy and creative rights. He looked at me. If you're interested, I could use some help with the logo design. Damien, Mom started, but he cut her off. The crown was heavy, Mom. Time to take it off. Callie laughed suddenly. Well, if we're doing confessions, I quit the country club, and I'm teaching ballet to underprivileged kids now. My turn, Mom said, wiping her eyes. I'm selling the house, your father's old studio. I'm turning it into an art school for children. You're all insane, Selah announced, still taking pictures. And it's absolutely perfect. Antonio cleared his throat. The handlers need to start packing soon. Have you made your decision about Paris? I looked at my family, really looked at them, at how far we'd come from that bitter reunion where this all started. The revenge I'd planned had transformed into something else entirely. Send them this one, I said, gesturing to the new painting. Tell them it's a package deal. Take it all or nothing, the journey and the destination. And if they say no, then I'll find someone who understands that the best art tells the whole story, not just the angry parts. My mother hugged me suddenly, fiercely. Your father would be so proud. We all are, Damien added. Even if you did make me look like I was drowning in champagne, Callie said, but she was smiling. Selah captured the moment, all of us laughing, the new painting bearing witness to our transformation. The morning light streamed through the gallery windows, making the gold leaf in all the paintings shimmer like stars. Time to pack up, Antonio called softly. We stepped back, watching as the handlers began carefully wrapping each canvas. But they weren't just paintings anymore. They were markers of where we'd been, signposts pointing to where we were going. Ready? Selah asked, showing me the photos on her camera. I looked at the last shot, my family standing together, the new painting behind us, all of us smiling real smiles. Yeah, I said. I'm ready for whatever comes next. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's letting go of the need for it. Sometimes it's painting a new picture, one brush stroke at a time.
I stood in front of the mirror, adjusting my graduation cap for the 100th time. My hands were trembling, not from nerves about the ceremony, but from excitement about finally having my moment. After 10 years of night classes, working double shifts, and putting everyone else first, I was graduating. Me, Jessica, the girl who always stood in the shadows of her husband's success. "You look perfect," Sandra said, appearing behind me with a champagne flute, "though I still think we should have gone with the sparkly heels." I laughed, glancing down at my sensible black pumps. "These'll do just fine. I don't want to trip walking across the stage. Brandon's going to be so proud." She squeezed my shoulder. "Speaking of which, where is that workaholic husband of yours?" "Surgery ran late," I said, checking my phone again. No messages. But he promised he'd make it to the party afterward. The graduation ceremony passed in a blur of speeches and name-calling. When they announced Jessica Mitchell, I walked across that stage with my head held high, thinking about all those nights I'd spent studying after closing the diner, all those promotions I'd turned down so we could stay near Brandon's residency program. Before we continue, quick question. Where has this story found you today? Let us know your location in the comments below. Now, let's continue. The party at our house was Sandra's idea. She'd transformed our backyard into a twinkling wonderland with fairy lights strung between trees and champagne flowing freely. Friends, family, and colleagues from both the diner and my new job at the investment firm filled the space with laughter and congratulations. "There's my graduate." Brandon's voice boomed across the yard as he finally arrived, still in his scrubs. He looked exhausted but handsome as ever, that same charm that had won me over 12 years ago, still evident in his smile. "Sorry I'm late, babe. Emergency appendectomy." I wrapped my arms around him, breathing in the familiar hospital antiseptic smell. "You're here now. That's all that matters. Actually," he pulled away, glancing nervously around the crowd, "there's something I need to tell you, something important." My stomach dropped. I knew that tone. It was the same one he'd used when telling me we had to move across the country for his residency. "Can it wait?" I gestured to our guests. "We're celebrating." "No." He cut me off, raising his voice slightly. "It can't wait. I've been seeing someone." The party chatter died down. I could feel eyes turning toward us, could hear Sandra's sharp intake of breath somewhere behind me. "What?" My voice came out as a whisper. "Her name is Trinity. She's a resident at the hospital." Brandon ran a hand through his hair, a nervous tick I'd found endearing once. "We've been together for 6 months. I'm leaving you for her." The silence that followed was deafening. Someone dropped a glass, the sharp crack against the patio tiles making me flinch. 6 months? I repeated, my mind racing through all those late nights, all those emergency surgeries. While I was finishing my degree, while I was still working 60-hour weeks to pay off your student loans. "I'm sorry," he said, but his eyes weren't on me. They were fixed on something, someone, behind me. I turned to see a young woman in designer clothes, looking uncomfortable but determined. Trinity. She'd been at my graduation party the whole time. "You brought her here?" The words came out as a snarl. "To my graduation party?" "I thought it would be better to be honest," Brandon said, reaching for Trinity's hand. "To start fresh." Sandra appeared at my side, her arm around my shoulders. "You need to leave. Both of you. Now." But I couldn't let him go. Not like this. Not after everything. 10 years, I said, my voice rising. "I gave you 10 years of my life. I worked at that diner until my feet bled to put you through med school. I moved across the country, away from my family, for your career. And this is how you repay me?" "Jessica," he started, but I was beyond hearing excuses. "Get out," I screamed, grabbing the nearest champagne glass and hurling it at his feet. The splash caught Trinity's expensive shoes, making her jump back with a yelp. As they hurried away, the party dissolved into chaos. People started gathering their things, making awkward excuses. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching my perfect night crumble around me. "I've got you," Sandra whispered, holding me up as my knees threatened to buckle. Let them go. We'll figure this out. But as I watched Brandon help Trinity into his car, the car I'd helped him pick out last year, something hardened inside me. This wasn't just about a failed marriage or a public humiliation. This was about justice, about consequences. I straightened my shoulders, wiping away tears I hadn't realized were falling. You're right, Sandra. We will figure this out, but not the way Brandon expects. The fairy lights continued to twinkle overhead, mocking what should have been my triumph. But as I stood there, surrounded by the wreckage of my celebration, I made a promise to myself. This wouldn't be the end of my story. It would be the beginning. The morning after my disastrous graduation party, I sat at our shared home office, staring at Brandon's laptop. He'd left it behind in his hurry to escape with Trinity. 10 years of marriage, and he couldn't even remember to grab his computer. You should eat something, Sandra said, placing a mug of coffee beside me. She'd stayed the night, sleeping on the couch after helping me clean up the aftermath of the party. I can't, I replied, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. Not until I figure out what else he's been hiding. Jessica? Sandra's voice held a warning note. Don't. I took a deep breath. Just don't. You know what's funny? He never changed his password. It's still the date we met. The laptop came to life, revealing dozens of open tabs, patient records, email chains, bank statements. My financial analyst brain kicked into gear as I started scanning the numbers. This doesn't make sense, I muttered, pulling up our joint account. He's been transferring large sums to an account I've never seen before. Sandra leaned over my shoulder. Maybe it's for the hospital? No. I shook my head, my hands shaking as I dug deeper. These transfers started 6 months ago, the same time he started seeing her. The doorbell rang, making us both jump. Sandra went to answer it while I continued searching through files. Jessica? A familiar voice called out. It's Eduardo from the hospital. I need to talk to you. Eduardo, Brandon's colleague and friend, stood in our living room looking uncomfortable in his casual clothes. I'd always liked him. He was one of the few doctors who treated me like a person, not just Brandon's wife. If you're here to defend him, I started. I'm not, he cut me off. I'm here because I think you need to know something about Trinity. I gestured for him to sit down. He perched on the edge of our couch, the one Brandon and I had picked out together last spring. She's not just a resident, Eduardo said, running his hands through his hair. She's the daughter of the hospital board chairman. Let's say he's been climbing the ladder faster than usual since they got together. My laugh came out bitter. So he traded up. Got himself a younger model with better connections. It's more complicated than that. Eduardo glanced at Sandra, who was hovering protectively nearby. There have been rumors about missing prescription pads, about procedures being signed off without proper oversight. I've tried looking into it, but every time I get close, the investigations disappear. My hands clenched into fists. And let me guess, Trinity's father makes sure everything stays buried? Eduardo nodded. Brandon's always been ambitious, but lately, look, I probably shouldn't be here. But you were always good to me, Jessica. You deserve to know what's really going on. After Eduardo left, I returned to the laptop with renewed purpose. Every file, every email, every transaction. I combed through them all with the same attention to detail that had earned me my recent promotion. Here, I said finally, pointing to a series of transactions. Look at these payments. They're coded as consulting fees, but they're going to offshore accounts. And the dates match up with some of the procedures Eduardo mentioned. Sandra squeezed my shoulder. What are you going to do? First, I said, plugging in my USB drive. I'm going to make copies of everything. Then I'm going to find out exactly what my dear husband has been up to at that hospital. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Need my laptop for work. Dropping by to pick it up. Perfect timing, I muttered, quickly finishing the file transfer. Sandra, would you mind making yourself scarce? I need to handle this alone. 20 minutes later, Brandon walked in using his key. He looked different somehow, sharper, colder, like a mask had slipped away. Where is it? He demanded, not even bothering with hello. I gestured to the laptop on the coffee table, right where you left it, along with your integrity, apparently. He froze. What's that supposed to mean? Oh, nothing, I said, keeping my voice light. Just wondering how many prescription pads it takes to buy Trinity those designer shoes she was wearing last night. The color drained from his face. You've been going through my files? Funny thing about being a financial analyst, I said, standing up. We're really good at following money trails. And yours, Brandon? They lead to some very interesting places. He grabbed the laptop, clutching it to his chest. You don't know what you're talking about. And even if you did, no one would believe you over me. I'm a respected surgeon. For now, I replied, watching him back toward the door. But respect is such a fragile thing, isn't it? Like trust or marriage vows. After he left, I sat down heavily on the couch, my hands shaking. Sandra emerged from the kitchen, her face concerned. Are you okay? I nodded slowly, a plan already forming in my mind. I will be, but first, I need to make a call to someone named Helen Graham. According to these emails, she's been asking some very interesting questions about Brandon's department. The game was on, and this time, I wasn't playing by anyone else's rules. The hospital lobby felt different now. For years, I'd walked these halls proudly as Brandon's wife, but today I moved like a ghost, watching the staff hurry past with new eyes. Every friendly smile, every casual greeting. I wondered who else had known about Brandon and Trinity while I remained oblivious. Can I help you? The receptionist's voice pulled me from my thoughts. Yes, I'm here to see Dr. Helen Graham. Do you have an appointment? No, but I leaned closer, lowering my voice. Could you tell her it's about Dr. Brandon Mitchell and some concerning financial discrepancies? The receptionist's eyes widened slightly. She picked up her phone, speaking in hushed tones. Within minutes, a security guard appeared to escort me to Helen's office. Helen Graham wasn't what I expected. Instead of the stern administrator I'd imagined, I found a woman in her late 50s with kind eyes and a streak of silver in her dark hair. She stood as I entered, gesturing for the security guard to leave. Jessica, she said, not a question. I've been wondering when you'd show up. I placed my USB drive on her desk. I have something you might want to see. Helen's expression remained neutral as she plugged in the drive and began reviewing the files. Only the occasional tightening around her eyes betrayed her reaction to what she was seeing. How long have you known? I asked, breaking the silence. About Trinity. A few months. Helen looked up, her gaze sharp. About the other things? I've had suspicions for longer, but Brandon is protected by Trinity's father. Among others, Helen leaned back in her chair. The hospital board isn't interested in scandal, especially not with our upcoming merger. What if they didn't have a choice? I pulled out a second USB drive. This one contains copies of everything: the unauthorized prescriptions, the fraudulent billing, the offshore accounts. One click, and it all goes to every major news outlet in the city. Helen's eyebrows shot up. That's quite a nuclear option you're holding. He humiliated me at my own graduation party, I said, my voice cracking slightly. After 10 years of sacrificing everything for him. And now you want revenge. It wasn't a question. I want justice. Helen stood, walking to her window. Below, I could see Brandon's reserved parking space, his luxury car gleaming in the sunlight. Did you know, Helen said, still looking out, that I was the one who recommended Brandon for his residency here? I saw such promise in him, brilliant surgeon, natural leader, But somewhere along the way, he started believing his own hype. She turned back to face me. What exactly are you proposing? I need access to the hospital's internal audit records, I said, and any complaints that might have been buried about Brandon's department. That's highly confidential information. So is writing prescriptions for non-existent patients. A ghost of a smile crossed Helen's face. You're not what I expected, Jessica. Brandon always portrayed you as simple, the devoted wife working her way through community college. Brandon sees what he wants to see. I stood, smoothing my skirt. I'm giving you a chance to clean house quietly, Dr. Graham. Help me expose Brandon's misconduct through proper channels, or I'll do it my way. And Trinity's father, the board, they'll fight back. Let them try. I placed my business card on her desk. I didn't spend 10 years analyzing financial records for nothing. As I turned to leave, Helen called out, "Wait." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick file. These are the complaints I've collected over the past year, the ones that never made it to official review. I reached for the file, but she held it back. Before you take this, understand something. Once you start down this path, there's no going back. People will get hurt, not just Brandon and Trinity, but others, innocent people who trusted him. Like I trusted him? Revenge might feel good in the moment, Jessica, but it leaves scars on everyone involved, including the person seeking it. I thought about the night of my graduation, about the look in Brandon's eyes as he chose Trinity over our decade together. Some scars are worth it. Helen handed me the file. I'll help you, but on one condition. We do this right, by the book. No leaked documents to the press, no nuclear options. Deal? I took the file, feeling its weight, the weight of decisions and consequences yet to come. Deal. As I left the hospital, my phone buzzed with a text from Sandra. Brandon's moving his things out of the house tomorrow. Want company? I looked down at the file in my hands, then back at my phone. No thanks, I've got work to do. That night, I spread Helen's documents across my dining room table, creating a web of post-it notes and highlighter marks. Each complaint, each discrepancy, each covered-up mistake, they were all pieces of a puzzle I was finally starting to see clearly. Brandon had always said I was good at putting things together. Time to prove him right. 3 more complaints came in this morning, Helen said, sliding a manila envelope across her desk. All from nurses who worked with Brandon last year. They were too afraid to speak up before, but now, I nodded, adding the new statements to my growing file. 2 weeks had passed since our first meeting, and the evidence against Brandon was mounting faster than either of us had expected. Have you seen him? Helen asked, studying my face. Only from a distance. He's moved in with Trinity at her father's beach house. I forced a smile. Very romantic. Jessica, Helen's voice softened. Are you sure you want to continue with this? The hospital board meets next week. Once we present our findings, there's no turning back. Before I could answer, her office door burst open. Brandon stood there, his surgical scrubs wrinkled, his face flushed with anger. What the hell are you doing? He demanded, storming toward me. The nursing staff is refusing to work with me. My patients are requesting transfers. Even Eduardo won't return my calls. Helen rose from her chair. Dr. Mitchell, this is highly inappropriate. Save it, he snapped, then turned back to me. Is this your revenge? Turning my own mentor against me? Poisoning my reputation? I met his gaze steadily. Your reputation? You mean the one you built on falsified records and buried complaints? You don't understand. He lowered his voice, glancing nervously at Helen. The things I did? I had to. Do you know how competitive this field is? How hard it is to stand out? Actually, Helen interrupted, I do. I've been standing out in this field for 30 years without compromising my ethics. Brandon ran his hands through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. Helen, please, you've been like a mother to me. Don't let her do this. I'm not doing anything, I said, standing up. These complaints, they're real people, Brandon. Patients who trusted you, nurses who tried to speak up. You did this to yourself. What about Trinity? He asked desperately. Her father can't protect you anymore? Helen finished. The board meeting next week isn't just about you, Brandon. It's about the entire culture of cover-ups and corruption. Your relationship with Trinity just helped us connect the dots. He turned to me, his eyes pleading. Jess, baby, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. Don't. My voice cracked. Don't you dare try to manipulate me. Not after everything. Fine. His face hardened. You want to play hardball? Remember who I am in this town. Remember who Trinity's father is. You really think anyone will believe the bitter ex-wife over me? They'll believe the evidence, Helen said quietly. And the witnesses. How many more do you think will come forward once they know they're not alone? Brandon's pager went off, making us all jump. He checked it, swearing under his breath. This isn't over, he warned, backing toward the door. You have no idea what you're getting into. After he left, I sank back into my chair, my hands shaking. Helen poured 2 glasses of water, adding a splash of something stronger to mine. Drink, she ordered. Then we'll talk. I took a sip, feeling the burn of alcohol. He's right, you know, about Trinity's father. He won't go down without a fight. No, Helen agreed, he won't. Which is why we need to be absolutely certain about every detail before the board meeting. She paused, studying me. There's something else you should know. She pulled up an email on her computer, turning the screen so I could see. Eduardo sent this morning. He's been doing some digging of his own. Apparently, Brandon's been writing prescriptions for Trinity's father's private medical practice. Medications that never made it to actual patients. My breath caught. You mean? Drug trafficking, Helen confirmed. Clean, respectable, hidden behind a veneer of legitimate medical practice. That's why Trinity's father has been so protective. Brandon's not just dating his daughter, he's part of the operation. I felt the room spin slightly. This is bigger than I thought, more dangerous, which is why I'm giving you one last chance to walk away, Helen said gently. We have enough to stop Brandon's medical career. We could leave it at that. I thought about the night of my graduation, about all those years of sacrifice, about the patients who had suffered because of Brandon's choices. No, I said firmly. We finished this, all of it. Helen nodded, a hint of pride in her eyes. Then we'd better get back to work. The board meeting is in 6 days, and we need everything to be perfect. As we bent over the files, sorting through evidence and testimony, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Brandon was right. I had no idea what I was getting into. But for the first time in years, I was fighting for something bigger than myself. And this time, I wasn't going to lose. You need to see this, Sandra said, bursting into my apartment without knocking. She thrust her phone at me, displaying a local news website. The headline made my stomach drop. Prominent surgeon alleges harassment campaign by ex-wife. I scanned the article, my hands growing cold. Brandon had given an interview, painting himself as the victim of a vengeful ex-spouse who couldn't accept the end of their marriage. He'd even managed to work in mentions of my unstable behavior at the graduation party. That manipulative bastard, I muttered, tossing the phone aside. He's trying to get ahead of the story before the board meeting. There's more, Sandra said, pulling up another article. Trinity's father is quoted here, defending Brandon's exemplary record and suggesting an internal investigation into Helen's conduct. My phone rang, Helen's number flashing on the screen. Have you seen? She started. The articles? Yeah, just now. I put her on speaker. What do we do? Meet me at Eduardo's place in an hour, Helen said. And Jessica, be careful. I think we're being watched. Sandra insisted on driving me to Eduardo's apartment. The whole way there, I kept checking the rearview mirror, paranoid about every car that stayed behind us for more than a few blocks. Eduardo's place was a small walk-up in a quiet neighborhood. Helen was already there when we arrived, along with 3 nurses I recognized from the hospital. These are the witnesses who agreed to go on record, Helen explained, introducing them. Maria, Rachel, and Diane. They've all documented instances of Brandon's misconduct. And we're all probably going to lose our jobs, Maria said grimly. Trinity's father has friends on every hospital board in the city. No, you won't, I promised, though my voice shook slightly. We have evidence of retaliation against whistleblowers. That's another federal offense. Eduardo emerged from his kitchen with coffee for everyone. The board meeting's been moved up, he announced, tomorrow morning instead of next week. What? Helen stood up. They can't do that. We need more time to... They're trying to catch us unprepared, I realized. Rush this through before we can organize our evidence properly. It gets worse, Eduardo continued. I overheard Trinity's father on the phone. They're planning to discredit Helen first, suggest she's been targeting Brandon out of professional jealousy. Helen laughed bitterly. Professional jealousy? I trained him. Everything he knows about surgery, he learned from me. They're scared, I said, spreading our evidence files across Eduardo's coffee table. Which means we're close to something big. Maria, those prescriptions you mentioned, when exactly did they start? We worked through the night, fueled by coffee and determination. Each piece of evidence was reviewed, each testimony practiced and refined. Around midnight, Sandra returned with takeout and fresh concerns. Someone broke into your apartment, she said quietly, pulling me aside. Nothing was taken, but your files were clearly searched. My hands started shaking. Did you call the police? Of course. They took a report, but... She shrugged helplessly. Let me guess. The responding officer was friends with Trinity's father? This is getting dangerous, Jessica. Sandra grabbed my arm. Maybe you should back off. Let the medical board handle it through official channels. The medical board? Maria scoffed from across the room. They're as corrupt as the hospital administration. No offense, Dr. Graham. Helen waved off the apology. She's right. The whole system is compromised. That's why we need to do this right. I walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street below. A car was parked across the road, its occupants barely visible in the darkness. As I watched, it pulled away slowly. They're trying to intimidate us, I said, turning back to the group. Scare us into backing down, but here's what they don't understand. I'm not doing this for revenge anymore. You're not? Eduardo asked. No. I picked up one of the patient complaints, a woman who'd suffered complications after Brandon rushed through her surgery. I'm doing this because it's right. Because every person in this room has sacrificed something to be here, to tell the truth. Helen smiled, that hint of pride back in her eyes. Then let's give them hell tomorrow. We worked for several more hours, organizing our presentation for the board. Around 3 a.m., as the others were gathering their things to leave, Helen pulled me aside. Whatever happens tomorrow, she said quietly, I want you to know something. Brandon was wrong about you. You're not just the bitter ex-wife. You're the person who finally had the courage to stand up and say, enough. I hugged her impulsively, surprising us both. Thank you for everything. As Sandra drove me home in the pre-dawn darkness, I thought about Brandon's threat in Helen's office. You have no idea what you're getting into. He was right. I hadn't known what I was getting into. But now that I was here, there was no turning back. Tomorrow would change everything, for better or worse. The hospital boardroom felt like a courtroom, with Trinity's father presiding at the head of the table like a judge. Brandon sat to his right, Trinity beside him, both wearing expressions of practiced concern. The other board members filled the remaining seats, their faces carefully neutral. Helen and I sat opposite them, our evidence spread before us like armor. The three nurses, Maria, Rachel, and Diane, waited outside, ready to testify. Eduardo had positioned himself near the door, watching everyone's reactions. "Before we begin," Trinity's father said, his voice smooth as oil, "I want to note for the record that this meeting was called under irregular circumstances. Irregular circumstances require irregular measures," Helen replied coolly. "Shall we begin with the prescription records, or would you prefer to start with the patient complaints?" Brandon shifted in his seat. I could see sweat beginning to form on his forehead. "Dr. Graham," one of the board members spoke up, "these are serious allegations. If they prove unfounded, the consequences to your career—" "They're not unfounded," I interrupted, sliding copies of our evidence across the table. "Everything in these folders is documented, verified, and witnessed." Trinity's father barely glanced at the papers. "Ms. Mitchell, given your personal situation with Dr. Mitchell, perhaps you should recuse yourself from these proceedings." "My personal situation is exactly why I'm qualified to be here," I said, standing up. "I spent 10 years watching Brandon cut corners, bend rules, and justify his actions. The only difference is now I have proof." I walked around the table, distributing more documents. "These are records of prescriptions written by Brandon for non-existent patients. The medications were diverted to private clinics owned by board member families." I paused beside Trinity's father. "Including yours, sir." The room temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Trinity grabbed Brandon's arm, whispering something in his ear. "This is absurd." Brandon stood up, his chair scraping back. "These allegations are clearly the product of a vindictive ex-wife and a mentor who can't accept being surpassed by her student." "Then you won't mind if we call in our witnesses?" Helen asked. She nodded to Eduardo, who opened the door for the nurses. Maria spoke first, her voice steady as she described catching Brandon falsifying post-op reports. Rachel followed with accounts of missing medications. Diane detailed how she'd been threatened with termination when she tried to report Brandon's mistakes. "Enough!" Trinity's father slammed his hand on the table. "This is nothing but hearsay and circumstantial evidence." "Actually," Eduardo stepped forward, "it's not." He pulled out his phone, playing a recording. Brandon's voice filled the room, clearly discussing prescription quantities with Trinity's father. The color drained from Brandon's face. "You recorded me? Eduardo, you were my friend." "I was your friend," Eduardo agreed, "until I realized what you were doing to our patients." Trinity stood up suddenly. "Daddy, we need to leave, now." "Sit down," her father ordered, but she was already heading for the door. "No," she said, turning back to face us all. "I'm not going down for this. I'm not losing my medical license before I even finish my residency." Brandon reached for her. "Trinity, baby, wait." "Don't baby me," she snapped. "You promised this would never come out. You promised my father would handle it." The board members were whispering among themselves now, papers rustling as they reviewed our evidence with new interest. "Dr. Mitchell," one of them said, "I think it's time you and your associates stepped out while we discuss this matter." "This isn't over," Trinity's father warned as he stood. "You have no idea the damage you've done." "No," Helen replied calmly. "The damage was done when you decided profits were more important than patients." They filed out, Brandon, Trinity, and her father, leaving us with the board. For the next 2 hours, we presented our case in detail. Every prescription, every complaint, every cover-up carefully documented and explained. When we finally emerged from the boardroom, Eduardo was waiting with news. "Trinity's gone," he said, cleaned out her locker and left. Word is she's already contacted a lawyer about turning state's evidence. And Brandon? I asked. Security's escorting him out now. The board called the DEA. They're on their way. I walked to the window, watching as Brandon was led to his car. He looked up, somehow sensing my presence, and our eyes met across the distance. For a moment, I saw the man I'd married. Brilliant, ambitious, and so certain he could never fail. Then he was gone, and I felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just a hollow sort of exhaustion. Helen appeared beside me. The board suspending his license pending investigation. Trinity's father has been asked to resign. What about the nurses? Protected under whistleblower statutes. They'll keep their jobs. She touched my arm gently. You did good, Jessica. We did good, I corrected. But something tells me this isn't quite over. No, Helen agreed, watching another car pull into the parking lot. This one marked with federal badges. This is just the beginning of a much bigger storm. The DEA investigation moved faster than any of us expected. Within 2 weeks, Brandon's perfect life had completely unraveled. I watched it happen from a distance, through news reports and courthouse appearances, until the morning he showed up at my door. 5 minutes, he said, his designer suit replaced by jeans and a wrinkled shirt. Please, Jessica, that's all I'm asking for. I should have shut the door in his face. Instead, I stepped aside, letting him enter the home we'd once shared. You look terrible, I observed, noting the dark circles under his eyes and his unkempt hair. Yeah, well, being indicted for drug trafficking will do that to you. He paced our living room like a caged animal. Trinity's talking to the prosecutors. Her father's fled the country. Everything I built is just gone. Everything you stole, you mean? He stopped pacing, turning to face me. I came to ask for your help. I laughed, the sound harsh even to my own ears. Are you serious? The prosecutors respect you. If you told them I was a good doctor, that I cared about my patients. But you didn't care, Brandon. That's the point. You cared about money and status and impressing Trinity's father. I cared about us, he shouted, making me flinch. Everything I did, every corner I cut, it was to give us a better life. Us? I stepped closer, anger burning away my fear. There hasn't been an us since you decided to humiliate me at my graduation party. Remember that? While I was celebrating finally getting my degree, you were planning your exit with your girlfriend. The doorbell rang, interrupting his response. Through the window, I saw Sandra and Eduardo on the porch, looking concerned. Your timing's perfect, I called out, letting them in. Brandon was just leaving. Actually, Eduardo said, his expression grim. We came to warn you. Trinity's been found dead in her apartment. The room went silent. Brandon staggered backward, collapsing onto the couch. What? He whispered. How? Apparent overdose, Sandra said quietly. But given everything that's happening, her father, Brandon jumped up, running his hands through his hair. He never forgave her for cooperating with the investigation. Oh God, what have I done? I watched my ex-husband crumble, all his arrogance and charm stripped away, leaving nothing but a scared man who'd played with forces he couldn't control. You need to go to the police, Eduardo said. Tell them everything you know about her father's operation. I can't. Brandon's voice cracked. He'll kill me too. He'll kill you anyway, I said, surprising myself with how calm I sounded. Your only chance is to tell the truth. For once in your life, Brandon, do the right thing. He looked at me then, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. Will you come with me? To the police station? Part of me wanted to refuse, to let him face this alone, like he'd left me to face my humiliation alone. But a larger part remembered the young doctor I'd fallen in love with, the man who'd once wanted to help people. Fine, I said, But not for you, for Trinity, and for all the patients you hurt along the way. The drive to the police station was silent. Sandra followed in her car, while Eduardo called Helen to update her. In the passenger seat, Brandon stared out the window, looking lost. "I never meant for any of this to happen," he said finally. "No one ever does," I replied. "But we all make choices, Brandon, and then we have to live with them." At the station, I watched from behind a glass window as Brandon gave his statement. He told them everything about the prescription scheme, about Trinity's father's drug operation, about the threats and cover-ups. With each word, his shoulders seemed to sink lower. Helen arrived as he was finishing, pulling me into a fierce hug. "Are you okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I will be." Through the glass, I saw Brandon look up, his eyes meeting mine one last time. In that moment, I felt the last threads of our shared past finally break. "You know what the worst part is?" I said to Helen as we watched the officers lead Brandon away. "I actually feel sorry for him." "That's because you're not the person he thought you were," she replied. "You're stronger than that." Outside the station, reporters were gathering, their cameras ready for the next chapter in the scandal. Sandra touched my arm gently. "Ready to face them?" I thought about the past few weeks, about revenge and justice, about choices and consequences, about the fine line between right and wrong. "No," I said honestly. But that's never stopped me before. As we pushed through the media crowd, their questions blurring into white noise, I realized something. This wasn't the ending I'd wanted when I'd started down this path of revenge. It was messier, sadder, more complicated. But maybe that's what real justice looked like. Not a triumph, but a reckoning. The autumn breeze carried the scent of coffee from the hospital cafe as I sat with Helen, watching medical students hurry past with their textbooks and dreams. "The board approved your proposal," Helen said, sliding a folder across the table. "Full funding for the mentorship program. They're calling it Project Integrity." I opened the folder, scanning the official letterhead. After Brandon's conviction and Trinity's father's arrest in Monaco, the hospital had been desperate to rebuild its reputation. My idea for a program supporting ethical practices and whistleblower protection had landed on receptive ears. "Have you told Sandra yet?" Helen asked. "She's already planning the launch event." I smiled, remembering my friend's excitement. "She says we need to make it big. Show everyone that things really have changed here." Speaking of change, Helen nodded toward the hospital entrance, where Eduardo was leading a tour group of new residents. "He's doing well as chief of surgery." "Better than well?" I agreed. The nurses actually smile during rounds now. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Brandon's sentencing had been announced. 5 years with possibility of parole. Part of his plea deal included testifying against Trinity's father's entire network. "You're not reading that, are you?" Helen reached across and gently pushed my phone face down. "Old habits," I admitted. "But you're right. That chapter's over." "Ms. Mitchell?" A young woman approached our table, clutching a medical textbook. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to thank you. Your testimony at the medical board hearings, it inspired me to report misconduct at my previous hospital." I recognized her then, Maria's younger sister, Rachel. "How did that go?" "They're investigating now." She straightened her shoulders. "I was scared at first, but then I thought about what you said about courage being contagious." After Rachel left, Helen raised an eyebrow. "Courage is contagious?" "I might have gotten a bit passionate during my speech." I laughed. "But it's true, isn't it? Look at what happened here. First Maria and the nurses spoke up, then Trinity, then Brandon. Then the entire corrupt system came tumbling down," Helen finished, "like dominoes." "Dr. Graham?" Eduardo approached, his tour group hovering nearby. Would you mind speaking to our new residents about the mentorship program? Helen stood, squeezing my shoulder as she passed. Coming right up. I watched as she addressed the group, her silver hair catching the sunlight. The new residents leaned forward, hanging on her every word as she described the changes we'd implemented. Anonymous reporting systems, ethical oversight committees, support networks for staff. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Sandra. Turn on the news now. I pulled up the local news website to find Trinity's father's face splashed across the screen. He'd been found dead in his Monaco hotel room. Apparent suicide. The authorities had discovered evidence linking him to drug trafficking operations in 3 other hospitals. Everything okay? Helen had returned, noting my expression. It's really over now. I showed her the article. The last domino. She sat back down, her face thoughtful. You know, when you first came to my office with that USB drive, I thought you were just another angry ex-wife looking for revenge. I was, I admitted, but somewhere along the way, it became about something bigger. It became about justice, she corrected, about doing what's right even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. A group of nurses walked past, waving to us. Among them were Maria, Rachel, and Diane, all now supervisors in their departments, their careers flourishing in the hospital's new environment. The first class of mentees starts next week, I said, changing the subject. 20 women from different departments, all interested in healthcare administration and ethics. And you'll be leading them, Helen smiled. From bitter ex-wife to whistleblower to program director, quite a journey. I thought about that journey, about the night of my graduation party, about the anger that had driven me to investigate Brandon, about the unexpected allies I'd found along the way. The revenge I'd sought had transformed into something far more meaningful. You know what's funny? I gathered my things, preparing to head to my new office. Brandon always said I was wasting my potential at that community college. Turns out, he was right about the potential part, just wrong about everything else. Helen stood with me. Ready for your first day as director? I looked around the hospital courtyard, at the medical students chasing their dreams, at the nurses walking tall with newfound confidence, at Eduardo teaching his residents about integrity as much as medicine. Actually, I smiled, I think I've been ready for this my whole life. As we walked into the hospital, I didn't see the shadows of my past anymore. Instead, I saw possibility. The possibility of change, of growth, of making a difference, not through revenge or destruction, but through building something new, something better, something that would last.
I stood in front of the full-length mirror, smoothing down my simple black dress, while my sister Elena's words from last year's gala still rang in my ears. Oh, Maggie, always hiding in the shadows. Someone needs to teach you how to shine. My name is Maggie Montgomery, and tonight I'm done hiding. The annual Women in Business Empowerment Gala buzzed with energy as I made my way through the crowd. Designer dresses and diamond jewelry sparkled under crystal chandeliers, but I kept my focus on the stage, where Elena would soon deliver her keynote speech. There's my favorite wallflower, Elena's voice carried across the room as she approached, champagne in hand. I almost didn't recognize you without your usual hoodie and laptop. I forced a smile. Good to see you too, Elena. Is that the dress I sent you last Christmas? She circled me, frowning. It looks different on you. Actually, I bought this myself. Oh, darling, you should have called me. I know how overwhelming fashion can be for someone like you. My best friend Malia appeared at my elbow, sensing tension. Maggie, there you are. I've been looking everywhere for you. Eleanor's perfectly painted lips curved into a smile. Malia, you're looking fabulous as always. Unlike some people, you understand the importance of presentation in business. I bit my tongue, thinking of the 3 tech companies I'd quietly built and sold over the past decade. The investment portfolio, that could buy Elena's failing fashion empire 10 times over. Actually, Malia said, Maggie just closed an incredible deal at her company. The board was, "Ladies and gentlemen," Elena cut her off, raising her glass. "Gather round. I simply must share the most adorable story about my baby sister." My stomach dropped. "Elena, please don't. When we were little, Maggie would try so hard to be like me. She'd steal my makeup and try to walk in my heels." Elena's voice carried across the now silent room. One time, she even cut up my favorite designer dress, trying to make her own fashion line. Can you imagine? It was precious. Polite laughter rippled through the crowd. I felt my cheeks burn. But that's what I love about her. She knows her limitations. She's found her little niche in computers, and she's content to stay in her lane while I built an empire. Isn't that right, darling? I looked around the room at the pitying smiles, the second-hand embarrassment. Malia squeezed my arm in support, but I'd already made my decision. "Actually," I said, my voice stronger than I expected, "I have an announcement to make." Elena's smile faltered. "Maggie, don't be silly. The grown-ups are talking business." "Oh, I'm talking business too." I stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "Did you know that Montgomery Fashion stock has dropped 60% in the past year? That they're 3 months away from bankruptcy?" The room went dead silent. Elena's face drained of color. "But don't worry," I continued. "An anonymous investor has been buying up the company's debt. Someone who believes in ethical fashion and supporting women in business. Someone who's been waiting for the right moment to step forward with some conditions for saving the company." "What are you talking about?" Elena hissed. I pulled my phone from my clutch and opened my banking app. "Would you like to see the receipts, dear sister? I have quite a collection." "You're bluffing," she whispered, but uncertainty crept into her voice. "Remember when you told me to learn how to shine?" I smiled, feeling years of suppressed confidence finally breaking free. "Well, I think it's time for both of us to step into the light. We're going to have a very interesting conversation about the future of Montgomery fashion." The crowd burst into whispers. Elena's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the marble floor. In that moment, looking at her shocked expression, I felt a mix of triumph and sadness. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about finally being seen. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "I believe this gala is about empowering women in business. So let's talk about real empowerment, not just the kind that looks good on Instagram." As security rushed to escort Elena away from her growing panic attack, I caught Malia's proud grin and Jordan McCarthy's intrigued stare from across the room. But it was Paige, Elena's assistant, whose knowing nod told me I'd just opened a Pandora's box of secrets. I picked up Elena's abandoned microphone, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "Now, who's ready to hear about the future of ethical fashion?" The room erupted in applause, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like anyone's shadow. I was about to change everything, for better or worse, and God help me, I was going to enjoy every minute of it. "You really did it," Malia said, pouring us both another glass of wine in my home office. The morning sun streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating walls of servers and multiple monitor displays. "You actually stood up to her." I clicked through the avalanche of emails flooding my inbox since last night's gala. "The press is having a field day. Tech sister emerges from fashion queen's shadow." "Good, let them talk." Malia settled into my ergonomic chair. "But are you ready for what comes next?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Elena's face flashed on the screen for the 20th time since last night. I declined the call. "You'll have to talk to her eventually," Malia said. "Not until the paperwork is finalized." I pulled up a complex spreadsheet showing years of strategic investments. "Look at this. She's been running the company into the ground for years. Unpaid overtime, sweatshop labor, environmental violations." "Miss Montgomery," my AI assistant's voice interrupted. "Jordan McCarthy is here for your 10 a.m. Malia raised an eyebrow. "The tech blogger? Moving fast, aren't we?" "It's not like that. He's been investigating ethical violations in the fashion industry. I need allies for what's coming next. Jordan walked in, leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder. His casual attire, jeans and a wrinkled button-down, contrasted sharply with the sleek office. "Impressive setup," he said, eyeing my tech, though I expected nothing less from the woman who created SecureFlow. I froze. "How did you— Please. The anonymous developer who revolutionized cybersecurity 3 years ago. I've been tracking the digital breadcrumbs for months." He pulled out his laptop. "But that's not why I'm here. Tell me about Elena's company." For the next hour, I laid out everything. The shell companies, the covered-up workplace accidents, the environmental shortcuts. Jordan took rapid notes, occasionally whistling at particularly damning details. "This is Pulitzer-worthy stuff," he said finally. "But why now? Why not expose this years ago?" "Because—" My phone buzzed again. This time it was Noel, my ex-husband. I answered on speaker. "What is it?" "Mags, Elena's at my house. She's hysterical." "And that's my problem because she's threatening to expose your involvement in the data shield breach." My blood ran cold. Malia sat up straight, and Jordan stopped typing. "She's bluffing," I said, but my voice wavered. "She doesn't know anything about that." "She has documents, Maggie. Real ones." I ended the call, my hands shaking. The data shield incident, my first major hack, done to expose corporate corruption, was supposed to be untraceable. "I need to go," Jordan said, packing up quickly. "But whatever that was about, handle it fast. My exposé goes live in 48 hours. After he left, Malia turned to me. "Maggie, what aren't you telling me?" I pulled up an encrypted folder on my main screen. "Remember 5 years ago, when Data Shield's CEO was arrested for selling customer data? The hack that exposed everything? That was you. It needed to be done. They were selling people's private medical information to insurance companies." I ran my fingers through my hair. "But if Elena can prove my involvement—" "Then you're no better than her," Malia finished, "and your whole ethical crusade falls apart." My phone pinged with a text from Paige. "Emergency. Meet me at Cafe Luna in 20. Elena's planning something big." I grabbed my jacket. "I have to go." "Maggie," Malia caught my arm. "Are you sure you want to keep pulling this thread? Some secrets are buried for a reason." "I'm done being buried," I said, heading for the door. "It's time everyone saw the truth. About Elena, about me, about everything." At Cafe Luna, Paige sat in a corner booth, nervously shredding a napkin. "Frederick's involved," she said as soon as I sat down. "He's been embezzling funds for years, and Elena helped cover it up. But that's not the worst part." "What could be worse?" "Your mother's estate." Paige lowered her voice. "The money that was supposed to go to your tech scholarship foundation. Elena and Frederick diverted it all to save the company last year." I felt the floor drop out from under me. That money was meant to help girls from underprivileged backgrounds get into STEM. Mum's last wish. "I have proof," Paige continued, sliding a USB drive across the table. "But if they find out I gave this to you—" "They won't," I promised, pocketing the drive. "But I need to know, why are you helping me?" Paige's eyes hardened. "Because 2 years ago, I watched Elena fire a pregnant woman for requesting medical leave. It's time someone stopped her." As I left the cafe, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line made my heart stop. "Final documentation, Montgomery Fashion Acquisition." It was time. In less than 24 hours, I would legally own my sister's company. The question was, what would she do to stop me? I opened my rideshare app, but instead of heading home, I input a different address. It was time to pay Noel a visit and find out exactly what Elena knew about my past. The game was changing, and I needed to know all the players. Noel's townhouse looked exactly the same as when I'd left 3 years ago. Even the wind chimes I'd hung still tinkled in the breeze. He opened the door before I could knock. "She's gone," he said, stepping aside to let me in. "But you should see this." Elena had left a hurricane in her wake. Papers scattered across Noel's usually pristine living room. empty wine glasses on the coffee table, and a familiar red leather diary lying open on the couch. My diary, from college. How did she get this? I picked it up with trembling hands. Said she found it while clearing out your mum's storage unit. Noel gathered the scattered papers. Maggie, there's stuff in there about Data Shield, about other companies too. I wrote everything in code. Elena hired someone to crack it. He handed me a stack of translated pages. She's desperate. The company means everything to her. I skimmed the decoded entries, my stomach churning. Did you read these? Enough to know you were busy in college. He sat beside me. Anonymous tips to the SEC, encrypted whistleblower reports, that mysterious server crash at PharmaCorp. My phone buzzed, Elena calling again. This time I answered. Family dinner. Tonight, 8 p.m. Her voice was steel. Vivienne's hosting. Eleanor, you owe me that much, little sister, before you destroy everything. She hung up before I could respond. Noel watched me with concern. You're not going, are you? I have to. I stood, gathering the diary and translations. But first, I need to make some calls. Back in my car, I dialed Malia. How quickly can you decrypt a USB drive? Depends what's on it. Why? Paige gave me something about Frederick and my mom's estate. I need to know what we're dealing with before dinner. Bring it over. And Maggie, be careful. Elena's not the only one with something to lose. At Malia's apartment, her computers hummed as she worked on Paige's drive. I paced, reading through my old diary entries. Got it, Malia said after an hour. Holy shit. The screen filled with spreadsheets, emails, and photos. Frederick in compromising positions with business partners. Elena signing documents with impossible dates. Money trails leading to offshore accounts. They didn't just take your mum's scholarship money, Malia said. They've been running a full-scale fraud operation. Look at these shipping manifests. They're using the fashion deliveries to smuggle goods. Can you send this to Jordan? Already done. But Maggie, she pointed to a photo dated last week. That's Paige with Frederick. They look close. My phone chimed with a text from Jordan. Story's ready. Running tonight at midnight. Hope you're prepared for the fallout. Another message popped up, this one from Vivienne. Bring your evidence tonight, all of it. How does she know? I whispered. Because I told her. Paige stood in Malia's doorway, making us both jump. Sorry, your door was open, and we need to talk. She looked different, confident, polished. Not the nervous whistleblower from this morning. You're working with Frederick, I said. Was working with Frederick, until I found out about the scholarship money. She sat down, uninvited. Look, I'm not proud of what I did, but Frederick promised to make me partner if I helped him manage Elena's indiscretions. And now I want to make it right, but we need to move fast. Frederick's planning to pin everything on Elena and take control of the company himself. My phone buzzed again, a news alert. Elena's face filled the screen. Fashion Empire CEO calls emergency board meeting. She's making her move, Paige said. Once she consolidates board support, your ownership won't matter. I checked the time, 6:30 p.m. Can you get me into that board meeting? It's at 7:30, right before your family dinner. I can get you in, but... Do it. I gathered my things. Malia, send everything to my lawyer. Paige, text me the meeting details. It's time to show Elena exactly what kind of player I've become. Maggie, Malia called as I headed for the door. What about your diary? The evidence against you? I smiled, feeling a calm certainty settle over me. Let her show it. Some things are worth the sacrifice. As I drove toward the Montgomery fashion headquarters, my phone lit up with a final text from Vivienne. Remember, dear, in this family, we don't fight to win, we fight to survive. I parked in Elena's reserved spot, straightened my jacket, and grabbed my laptop. In 90 minutes, I'd face the board. In 3 hours, Jordan's story would break, and somewhere in between, I'd have to survive dinner with the family I was about to tear apart. Game on, big sister. The Montgomery fashion boardroom fell silent as I walked in, Paige 2 steps behind me. Eleanor stood at the head of the table mid-sentence, her perfect composure cracking for just a moment. "What is she doing here?" Frederick's voice cut through the silence. "I believe," I said, connecting my laptop to the projector, "I have a right to attend, given that I now own 51% of the company's debt." Elena's knuckles whitened around her presentation remote. The board was just discussing a restructuring plan. To hide the missing scholarship money, I clicked through to the first spreadsheet, or to cover up the shipping manifests. Frederick stood abruptly. "This meeting is private." "Sit down, Frederick." Paige's voice was sharp. "Unless you'd like me to share those photos from the Dubai trip." The color drained from his face as he sank back into his chair. "Ladies and gentlemen," I addressed the board, "in exactly 3 hours, a major tech publication will release a story detailing years of fraud, labor violations, and criminal activity at this company. But you have a choice." I laid out my terms: ethical manufacturing standards, fair labor practices, and a restored scholarship foundation with double the original funding. The board members exchanged glances as the evidence mounted on screen. "This is absurd," Elena interrupted. "You can't just walk in here and—" "Actually, I can." And I did. I turned to face her directly. "The question is, dear sister, are you ready to do the right thing, or should I let Frederick take the fall alone?" Frederick jumped up again. "You wouldn't dare." "Check your email," Paige said quietly. One by one, the board members looked at their phones, faces growing grave as they read Jordan's advance copy of the story. "All in favor of accepting the new terms?" I asked. The vote was unanimous. Elena stood frozen, her perfect world crumbling around her. "Meeting adjourned," I said. "Now, I believe we have a family dinner to attend." The drive to Vivian's house was tense. Elena insisted on riding with me, her silence more dangerous than any outburst. "You've ruined everything," she finally said as we pulled up to the mansion. "No, Elena, I saved everything. You just can't see it yet." Vivian opened the door herself, her silver hair elegant as ever. "My girls, right on time." The dining room looked like a museum piece, all crystal and silver, but the tension crackling through it was very much alive. Noel was already seated, along with Jordan, whose presence made Elena's eyes narrow. "You invited a reporter," she hissed. "I invited everyone who needs to hear the truth," Vivian said, taking her seat at the head of the table. "Including the truth about your father." Elena's wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. "What does Dad have to do with this?" "Everything." Vivian pulled out an old envelope. "You see, your father didn't leave because of his gambling debts. He left because he discovered something about the company, something that would have destroyed your grandfather's legacy." My heart pounded as Vivian continued. "The company was built on blood money. Your grandfather stole his initial designs, drove his partner to suicide, and buried the evidence. Your father found proof and threatened to expose everything, so I convinced him to leave." "Mom," Eleanor whispered, "what did you do?" "What was necessary, just like Maggie is doing now." Vivian turned to me. "You're more like me than you know, dear, but you're doing what I couldn't, breaking the cycle. The story goes live in an hour," Jordan said gently. "But it doesn't have to include everything." Elena's hands shook as she reached for the envelope. "All this time, I thought I was protecting his legacy." "You were protecting a lie," I said. "But we can build something true now, together." "Why didn't you tell me?" Elena looked at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time in years. "About your success, your company's." "Would you have listened?" The grandfather clock chimed 9, its sound heavy with history and secrets. Noel cleared his throat. "The data shield evidence," he said. "Elena, what are you going to do with it?" She pulled my diary from her bag, along with the translations. Without a word, she walked to the fireplace and dropped them in. We watched the pages curl and blacken. "I never could decode your weird little ciphers anyway," she said, attempting a smile. My phone buzzed, Malia sending the final version of Jordan's story for approval. One text from me would set everything in motion. Before you send that, Elena said, I need you to know something. The scholarship money. I didn't take it all. Half is still there, waiting. I couldn't completely betray Mom's wish. Vivian reached across the table, taking both our hands. Then let's make it right, all of it. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and saw past the perfect makeup and designer dress to the girl who used to read me bedtime stories. I pressed send on the text. The truth was about to change everything. But maybe, just maybe, it would change us for the better. The morning after Jordan's story broke, I walked into Montgomery Fashion's headquarters to find chaos. Phones rang off the hook, employees huddled around computer screens, and reporters camped outside the glass doors. Miss Montgomery, a young intern rushed up to me. Which Miss Montgomery are you? The one with the working laptop, I said, heading for Elena's office. Where's my sister? Conference room B, the investors are calling. I found Elena surrounded by screens showing angry faces in expensive suits. She looked like she hadn't slept. The stock has dropped 30%, one investor barked. This is unacceptable. Actually, I said, stepping into view, it's an opportunity. Elena's head snapped up. Maggie? Ladies and gentlemen, I addressed the screens, pulling up a presentation on my tablet. Let me show you our new direction. For the next hour, I outlined our transformation plan. Ethical manufacturing, transparent supply chains, and a revolutionary tech platform for sustainable fashion. Elena watched, her expression shifting from surprise to understanding as I revealed the innovations I'd been developing in secret. This isn't just damage control, I concluded. It's the future of fashion. After the calls ended, Eleanor slumped in her chair. You've been planning this for years, haven't you? Someone had to. Her phone buzzed. Frederick's lawyer. She put it on speaker. Elena, he's talking, telling them everything. I need to what? She interrupted. Hide. Run. No, I'm done running. After she hung up, we sat in silence until Paige burst in. The factory workers are going public, she said, tablet in hand. All of them. Every sweatshop, every unsafe condition. Elena stood. Get me a car. I need to see this myself. We'll take my car, I said. I'm coming with you. The factory was on the outskirts of the city, a sprawling complex that looked nothing like the glossy photos in company brochures. Workers gathered outside, sharing stories with news crews. Miss Elena? A woman approached us, her eyes fierce. Remember me? Sarah from the night shift, the one you fired when I got hurt. Elena stepped forward. I remember, and I'm here to make it right. For hours we listened to their stories. Elena took notes, asked questions, looked each person in the eye. I watched my sister transform from a defensive CEO to someone learning hard truths. Back at the office, Malia was waiting with more news. Frederick's not just talking about the company, she said. He's revealed some interesting things about Vivian's past. My phone rang. Jordan. Turn on the news, he said without greeting. Your mother's about to make a statement. We crowded around Elena's office TV. Vivian stood at a podium, looking regal as ever. 30 years ago, she began, I made choices that hurt many people. Today, my daughters are choosing a different path. They're choosing truth. Elena gripped my hand as we watched our mother confess to decades of secrets. She's sacrificing everything, Elena whispered. For us. No, I corrected. For the truth. Paige entered with fresh coffee and headlines. Social media's exploding. People are calling for boycotts. But there's also support, lots of it, especially from women in tech and fashion. Show me, Elena said. We scrolled through messages from young designers, tech innovators, and ethical fashion advocates, all offering help and partnership. This could work, Elena said slowly. The transformation. But I need your help, Maggie. Both your business sense and your technical expertise. I raised an eyebrow. Are you asking me to hack something? I'm asking you to be my sister, my partner, for real this time. Before I could respond, Noel appeared in the doorway. "You both need to see this." He led us to the company's main server room. "Someone's trying to wipe the systems. Started about 10 minutes ago." I jumped into action, fingers flying over the keyboard. "It's Frederick. Has to be. He's trying to destroy evidence." "Can you stop it?" Elena asked. "Better." I smiled grimly. "I can trace it." For the next 20 minutes, I battled Frederick's tech team, protecting files, while Noel called cybersecurity and Elena contacted the FBI. "Got him," I finally said. "He's at the airport, Terminal C." Elena was already grabbing her keys. "Let's end this." As we raced to the airport, Elena glanced at me. "You know, when we were kids, I always thought I was protecting you by keeping you in my shadow. And now? Now I realize you were never in my shadow at all. You were just waiting for the right moment to step into your own light." We pulled up to Terminal C, just as FBI agents surrounded Frederick at the gate. He saw us, and his face contorted. "You think this changes anything?" he shouted as they led him away. "You're just like your mother, destroying everything you touch." "No," Elena called after him. "We're building something new, something real." As we watched them take him away, my phone buzzed with a message from Vivian. "Ready for phase 2? I showed it to Elena. "Are we?" She straightened her shoulders, looking more like my sister and less like a fashion icon. "Together this time." "Together," I agreed, and we walked back into the chaos we'd created, ready to build something true from the ashes of our family's lies. "You want me to do what?" I stared at Elena across her newly reorganized office, now stripped of its pretentious art and filled with sustainability charts. "Present at the Fashion Innovation Summit," she repeated. "Next week, with me. I don't do public speaking." The tech genius who brought down a fashion empire is afraid of a microphone. Jordan leaned against the doorframe, grinning. "That's going in my follow-up piece." "Nobody invited you to this meeting," I said, but couldn't help smiling. "Actually," Elena pulled up an email, "I did. We need media coverage of the company's transformation, and Jordan's already proven he can handle sensitive stories." My phone buzzed, Paige requesting an urgent meeting. Speaking of sensitive stories, I found Paige in the server room, surrounded by boxes of old files. "Look what I found in Frederick's personal storage." She handed me a stack of photographs. "It's about your father." The photos showed our father meeting with Vivian at a cafe, dated just last year. He was older, grayer, but unmistakably alive and well. "There's more," Paige said. "Account statements showing monthly payments from Vivienne to an address in Vancouver." "She's been supporting him all this time." My hand shook. "Elena needs to see this." "See what?" Elena appeared behind us, making both of us jump. Her eyes fell on the photos. "Is that—" "Dad," I confirmed, very much alive and apparently in regular contact with Mom. Elena snatched the photos, her face cycling through shock, anger, and hurt. "All these years, she let us think." "We need to talk to her," I said, "now." But before we could leave, Malia burst in. "Turn on the news. Frederick's wife is giving an interview." We rushed to the nearest TV. Frederick's elegant wife Sandra sat perfectly poised, her expression carefully controlled. "What my husband did was unconscionable," she was saying, "but he wasn't acting alone. The Montgomery family has a long history of burying secrets. Ask them about Thomas Wright." Elena grabbed my arm. "That was grandfather's business partner, the one who supposedly committed suicide." "Sandra knows something," I said. "We need to—" "Already on it," Jordan interrupted, phone to his ear. "My source says Sandra has documents from Thomas's daughter. Apparently your grandfather didn't just steal designs, he stole the entire company through forged documents." "The truth keeps getting uglier," Elena muttered. "Then let's put all of it out there," I said. "At the summit, complete transparency." "That's corporate suicide," Paige protested. "No," Elena straightened up. "It's liberation, but first, we're going to Vancouver." 2 hours later, we were on a private jet heading north. Elena paced the aisle while I dug through old company records on my laptop. "Found something," I said. "Thomas Wright's daughter is still alive. living in Seattle. Book her a ticket to the summit, Elena ordered. It's time everyone heard the whole story. My phone lit up with a text from Vivienne. I know where you're going. He's expecting you. Mom knew we'd find out eventually, I realized. This was all part of her plan. Of course it was. Elena laughed bitterly. She's always 10 steps ahead. The Vancouver address led us to a modest house overlooking the water. Our father opened the door before we knocked. I wondered when you'd find me, he said simply. We sat in his living room, the silence heavy with 20 years of absence. Finally, Elena spoke. Why did you really leave? He pulled out an old leather portfolio. Because of these. Original designs by Thomas Wright. Proof that your grandfather drove him to his death. Your mother gave me a choice. Take the money and disappear, or watch her destroy the evidence and everyone connected to it. And you chose money over your daughters? I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. I chose to keep the truth alive, he countered. Everything I received went into a trust, for both of you, to use when you were ready to make things right. Elena's phone chimed. Sandra was requesting a private meeting. She has Thomas's daughter's contact information, Elena said. She's willing to trade it for immunity from prosecution. The summit's in 5 days, I said. Can we pull this all together in time? We have to. Eleanor stood. Dad, will you come? Tell your part of the story. He looked between us, seeing not the little girls he left behind but the women we'd become. Yes, it's time. As we left, I turned back. Why didn't you ever reach out? Let us know you were okay. Because you needed to find your own strength, he said. And look what you've done with it. Back on the plane, Elena pulled up the summit schedule on her tablet. Ready to rewrite fashion history, little sister? I thought about all the secrets, all the lies, all the pain that had brought us here. No more shadows, I said. Let's show them what the Montgomery sisters can really do. Elena smiled, and for the first time in years it reached her eyes. Together. Together, I agreed, and began typing out our presentation. The truth was messy, but it was ours to tell. The Fashion Innovation Summit's main hall buzzed with anticipation. I stood backstage, adjusting my microphone while Eleanor paced. Sandra's here, Paige reported, tablet in hand. Front row, with Thomas Wright's daughter, Patricia. And Frederick's lawyers, Elena asked. 3 rows back, looking nervous. I peered through the curtain. Vivienne sat in the center, our father beside her, both looking straight ahead. Jordan was typing furiously in his seat, while Malia gave me a thumbs up from the tech booth. 2 minutes, the stage manager called. Elena grabbed my hand. Last chance to back out. Not a chance. I squeezed back. Ready to burn it all down? And build something better. The lights dimmed and we walked out to polite applause. Elena took her place at the podium while I stood by the presentation screen. Ladies and gentlemen, Elena began, you're not here for a fashion show. You're here for the truth. The first slide appeared, a black and white photo of Thomas Wright with our grandfather. 50 years ago, 2 men started a company. One died in disgrace. The other built an empire on lies. A murmur ran through the crowd. Patricia Wright sat straighter. But today isn't about the past, I stepped forward. It's about the future we choose to build. For the next 30 minutes, we laid it all bare. Elena revealed every unethical practice, every covered-up violation. I demonstrated the new blockchain-based transparency system I developed to track manufacturing. Every garment will have a digital passport, I explained, showing exactly who made it, under what conditions, with what materials. And speaking of transparency, Elena added, let's talk about Frederick. On cue, Sandra stood up. My husband wasn't acting alone. I have proof that board members knew about the illegal shipping operations. We know, I said, clicking to the next slide. That's why we're restructuring the entire board. Gasps and whispers filled the room as names and evidence appeared on screen. But the biggest secret, Elena continued, isn't about fashion at all. Dad. Our father walked onto stage, his step steady. 20 years ago, I discovered evidence of my father-in-law's crimes. Vivian offered me a choice, silence or exile. I chose exile, but I also chose to protect the truth. Patricia Wright stood up. My father's designs, the ones that disappeared after his death, are right here, I said, revealing the contents of the old portfolio. And they're being returned to their rightful owner, you. The audience erupted in chaos. Lawyers rushed forward, reporters shouted questions, and somewhere in the back, I heard Frederick's name being mentioned by security. Furthermore, Elena raised her voice above the noise. We're establishing the Wright Innovation Fund, supporting young designers from underprivileged backgrounds. Using the money our father saved for us, I added, along with my tech company profits and Elena's personal assets. Vivian stood slowly, drawing all eyes. And I'm adding my shares to the fund. It's time for real change. Suddenly, the screens went black. Warning messages flashed across my laptop. Someone's trying to crash the system, I announced, fingers flying over the keyboard. But they forgot who they're dealing with. Within minutes, I'd traced the attack and restored the presentation. Courtesy of Frederick's legal team, I smiled grimly, who've just violated their bail conditions. Security moved toward the lawyers as Elena continued our presentation. We outlined the company's transformation plan, our commitment to ethical practices, and the tech innovations that would make it possible. We're not just changing a company, Elena concluded, we're changing an industry. And we're starting right now, I added, launching the new system live on stage. The audience rose in a standing ovation. Patricia Wright made her way to the stage, tears in her eyes as she hugged us both. Your grandfather would be proud, she whispered, not of what was built on lies, but of what you're building on truth. Backstage after the presentation, Vivian waited with our father. Well played, she said, both of you. But remember, the hardest part comes next. Actually, Eleanor smiled, checking her phone, it's already happening. Our stock is up 30%. Ethical fashion brands are requesting partnerships, and Jordan's live blog of the summit is trending worldwide. The Wright Innovation Fund website has crashed from application volume, Malia reported, rushing up. And you both need to see this. She showed us her tablet. Frederick had posted a full confession online, throwing his co-conspirators under the bus in a desperate attempt to save himself. Perfect timing, I said. The FBI will love his detailed account of everyone involved. Speaking of involvement, our father said quietly, I'd like to help, if you'll have me. Eleanor and I exchanged looks. 20 years of anger and hurt didn't disappear in a day, but maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward. The Wright Innovation Fund needs a director, Elena offered. Someone who knows the importance of protecting creative rights, I added. He nodded, understanding the olive branch for what it was. As reporters clamored for follow-up interviews and industry leaders lined up to speak with us, Elena pulled me aside. Ready for what comes next? I looked at our unlikely family, broken, healing, but finally honest. Ready for anything. The revolution we'd started was just beginning, but for the first time, we were all stepping into the light together. The morning sun streamed through the renovated Montgomery fashion headquarters as I walked past workstations filled with young designers collaborating with tech developers. My new normal still felt surreal. Your 9 a.m. is here, Paige announced as I entered the shared office Elena and I now occupied. And Elena's running late. Of course she is. I smiled, spotting the familiar figure waiting by the window. Hello, Frederick. He turned, prison orange replaced by a subdued suit, his former arrogance gone. Maggie, thank you for seeing me. You said you had something important to share. Information about other companies, similar operations to what we were running. He placed a thumb drive on my desk. Consider it my attempt at making amends. Or saving yourself at sentencing, I noted, but pocketed the drive. Elena burst in, slightly breathless. Sorry, the Wright Innovation Fund meeting ran long. Patricia had amazing ideas for the apprenticeship program. Frederick stood awkwardly. I should go. Stay, Elena commanded. You helped create this mess. You should see how we're fixing it. I pulled up our latest project on the wall screen, a virtual fashion show featuring designs from our scholarship recipients, modeled by women of all sizes and backgrounds. This launches tonight, I explained. Complete transparency on every piece, from design origin to manufacturing conditions. And look who's hosting, Elena added as Jordan's face appeared in the promo. Frederick watched, his expression unreadable. You've actually done it. Changed everything. Not everything, I said. There's still work to do, starting with this. I held up his thumb drive. Elena raised an eyebrow. More industry secrets. More chances to make things right, Frederick corrected. A knock interrupted us, Vivienne and our father, with Malia close behind. The papers are ready, Malia announced. Everything's set for the merger. Frederick looked confused. Merger? Right Innovations is becoming part of the family again, Elena explained. The right way this time. Patricia and I are co-chairing the board, our father added, with Vivienne as ethics advisor. And what about you two? Frederick asked Elena and me. We're stepping back from day-to-day operations, I said. Focus on the tech side, developing new transparency tools. And I'm launching a consultancy, Elena added, helping other fashion houses transition to ethical practices. Using your insider knowledge of what not to do, Frederick attempted humor. Using our understanding of how hard change can be, Elena corrected, and how necessary. My phone buzzed, Jordan sending the final cut of tonight's launch video. I played it on the main screen, watching our vision come to life. Remember when you told me to learn how to shine? I asked Elena. I was wrong, she said. You already knew how. I just couldn't see past my own reflection. Vivienne stepped forward. The car's waiting. The press wants photos of the whole family at the launch. The whole family? I looked at our father. He smiled tentatively. If you'll have me. Actually, Elena pulled out an envelope. We have something for you first. Inside were papers transferring partial ownership of the Right Innovation Fund to him, with conditions. You'll work directly with Patricia, I explained, using your experience to protect other innovators from what happened to her father. And you'll be there, Elena added, for every family dinner, every holiday, every milestone. No more running. He took the papers with shaking hands. I don't deserve this chance. None of us deserved our second chances, Vivienne said softly, but we got them anyway. Frederick cleared his throat. I should go. My lawyer's waiting. Frederick, Elena called as he reached the door. Thank you for showing us who we didn't want to become. He nodded once and left, carrying the weight of his choices. Ready for tonight? Malia asked, tablet ready. I looked around the office. At Elena arranging tomorrow's meetings, our parents reviewing Right Fund applications, Vivienne making notes on ethical guidelines. Almost, I said. Just one more thing. I pulled up the company's original logo on my screen, the one Thomas Wright had designed all those years ago. Patricia approved it this morning, Elena said, watching me work. Dad, he came to stand between us, seeing his father-in-law's art transformed into something new. The logo morphed, incorporating elements of transparency and innovation while honoring its origins. Perfect, Vivienne whispered. My phone lit up with messages, Paige coordinating security, Jordan sending last-minute updates, Noel confirming he'd be there to support us. You know, Elena said as we gathered our things, when this all started, I thought you were trying to destroy me. I was trying to save you, I corrected. Save us all. She linked her arm through mine as we headed for the elevator. Well, sister dear, mission accomplished. The doors opened to reveal the lobby filled with reporters, designers, and supporters. Our family fell into step behind us. Not perfect, not completely healed, but moving forward together. Ready? Elena squeezed my hand. I squeezed back, feeling the strength of truth and reconciliation in our grasp. Ready. Together, we stepped into the light we'd created, ready to shine on our own terms.